Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the stream. My name's Angie Duran. Um, this is crazy. Oops. Is that you guys? No, it's okay. I have people in the room with me that are helping me out because this is my first live stream kind of situation. So please bear with me, everyone. It's going to be a bit of a bumpy road, um, but hopefully everything you learned today will be pretty informative and can help out a lot of you guys so much. Um, so so if you had not received an email yesterday or anything, then unfortunately you're not a part of the review list. I was only able to get about 11 people to review because thankfully, a lot of you guys all responded. You all applied, which is really great. I appreciate that a lot. Um, but unfortunately, there's so many of you guys, and to get you all in 2 hours, it's nearly impossible for just one person to do. So unfortunately, I can't see all of you guys. So if you did not receive an email, that means you aren't going to be reviewed, but I do hope you still stay while we talk about the people who are being reviewed and you can see their portfolios and kind of learn like what you guys could possibly do in your own portfolios to help you out in the future. So thank you again for helping and like joining and being a part of all of this. So first off, we have Diogo. Um, so wait, before we go into Diogo, I'll just introduce myself. Sorry, this is also new to me. So I'm Angie Duran. I am an artist in feature and TV animation. I've worked in both TV in background designing, painting, and recently more visual development. I started off graduating from Art Center College of Design over in 2017. And from there, I had the wonderful opportunity of working as an intern over at Nickelodeon Animation. And from there, I had opportunities to work at Titmouse, working on Mau Mau Legends of Pure Heart Valley, working on the Casa Grandes over at Nickelodeon, jumping over to Netflix to work on a project that will hopefully be released in the coming years. And now I'm over at Paramount Animation. So I've, in the short time that I've had to work, I've spent a lot of time asking so many questions, a lot of advice, trying to pick and learn as much as I could from the industry and my mentors and also my coworkers and friends, just trying to get their points of views on art, seeing how they work in different fields. And from there, I just kind of get as much information as I could, and I wanted to give back to you guys and to kind of help you out as best as I could. In no way is the information I'm giving the only solution. It's just based off of experiences that I've had, that I've seen from other people's work, what helped me get in, and just advice I've gotten from other people. So I hope that it can help you all as well. And so to start off, we're going to go to Diogo Alexandre and he is going to be the first person we're interviewing today. So if you would like to introduce yourself a bit so we can get started.
Oh, hello. My name is Diogo. Um, I am a master student in concept art, but I've been doing a lot of what I seems to be location design lately. And I've worked with a couple companies, but mostly TTRPG companies, so tabletop role playing games. And I managed to work once with a concept art outsource company called Adam Hawk for like 2 months on a freelance project. But besides that, there's not much excitement around my life.
So what is it that you hope to like so what would you define yourself as in terms of like a field if you had to?
Uh, Lately, essentially, my way of describing myself is an environment artist.
Okay. And you
So,
want to work
environment concept.
in concept art and possibly feature or what exactly?
I've lately been looking a lot into working either on TV shows, like animation TV
Uh-huh.
shows, or feature film for
Okay.
animation. And my main goal is using some of the skills that I seem to have already to work on location design
Okay.
or background design
Mm-hmm.
because both of them fit what I tend to do on my day to day.
Okay. So if you were to work at a studio, what kind of studio would be like the big dream one?
Um, so Hawk is the main studio. That's like the end goal in general. But overall, I've really been looking into Netflix animation work
Mm-hmm.
because most of the things that Netflix has been coming out with have just been amazing,
Yeah.
including like latest Castlevania and
Yeah.
the Witcher movie that they just
Yeah.
released. So I would say Netflix animation is kind of like, for specifically animation, one of the places I would love to be at.
Okay. So would you define your style as you're more into the realistic kind of way, less of the super cartoony style?
Um, I would say it's more of a semi-realism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like a great fan of the super realism for me
Yeah.
to
No,
do,
no. Yeah.
but I also don't like it when I have to do overly cartoony.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, as I said, the Castlevania thing is
Yeah,
the
that's
line
why.
where it's real enough, but you can still push some of the shapes here and there.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take a look at your portfolio. And so this is your portfolio. Everyone look at his amazing art. It's so great. So right off the bat, so I looked at your portfolio. It was really great to see. You have a lot of strong environments that you design, like you said. It's what you're into. So when it comes to TV, though, a lot of things to keep in mind is that when you work in TV as a background designer, you're basically setting up the scenes that will be necessary for um, the the story beat moment. So when I worked over at Nickelodeon, I did background design over there. And so a lot of the times we get these rough storyboards from the storyboard artists. We'll each get assigned like maybe I would get like 14 or so to 10 each week, or that were due every like 2 weeks. And so usually, you kind of make up the world. You're not always creating these cutaways per
Yeah,
se. Um, so what would be great if you're trying to apply for any type of background designing portfolio is to then like you have a lot of strong pieces here. I would say if you were to take like this piece, and cut in on this scene right here, get it to be like I think it's like 16 by 9 or like kind of TV format, and then
yeah,
I would just draw this background. And then I would take out the characters because that's more so of what you would then be. You're not in charge of any characters, so what you could do is do a silhouette of the character and drop in a single color and lower the opacity. So you're indicating like this is where the character will go, but you're not responsible for said character. So that would be really great to see, because whether it be in feature or in like TV, especially in TV, you need these flat kind of areas. These are great for feature in terms of when you need to send this to a 3D modeler and they need to know kind of what they're building. Um, because since in like feature animations that involve 3D, you have a character there moving around the space. Um, but so when it comes to TV, you're at a budget and you can really only afford to get each of those shots. So
yeah,
you try not to spend too much budget on like building the entire set when you could really just be focusing on this scene here, this scene over here, um, or like what you kind of have here is really great too. But you want to try to avoid really crazy angles. Try to do some that are just a flat kind of pan view. And I can show you an example here from my website of what I kind of did. Um, So when it comes to like, so this was one I did for Mau Mau. I got a storyboard and I drew it in. And so this is a pretty flat on shot, but you can kind of take this shot and we can crop into like much closer into the sink if say we need a scene where we're only focusing on the sink, or we can pan out, see the entire bathroom. We have a door access for the character to walk through in. You have all these like things in the foreground that you can then turn off or turn back on depending on what the episode is about or anything like that.
yeah.
So stuff like that is great to include in a portfolio. Same here, it's like the characters ideally would be sitting on this couch, but we're only focusing on the background at hand. So that would be great to kind of include stuff like this where you have ones that are really long that are meant for snippets that way you can like save money on a budget. You just draw one big image and you can indicate like, oh, you can crop in here, crop in there, and that shows a potential hiree that you know how to think of these things, that you're knowledgeable in this kind of stuff versus if you drew like 10 different like super dynamic backgrounds that just don't work in TV. Like they'll probably see your skill and they'll take a chance, but it just helps to give them that little edge of like I can do this crazy thing, but I can also do what you need to be done. So that's really great. Do you have any
Right?
questions?
Uh, because I saw that it was asked to have a few in preparation.
Yeah.
Believe, let me see if it even saved it. Uh, but I had a few questions, which were mostly one of them, because I've been working as a freelancer a lot, is how do you actually get, or like, where do you find freelance animation clients?
hmm So a lot of the times I
Uh,
find it hard myself too to find those freelance options. There was a lot of times where I would have those full-time gigs and I would also be like in the background just kind of like, oh, I might need another job soon, or like it would be nice to gain more experience than just like what I'm doing right now. Or sometimes I felt like kind of idled, like, like, oh, my job's great, but I kind of want to be doing more things.
yeah,
I understand finding freelance is pretty hard. The biggest thing is to because of COVID, so many industries have been reaching back out online. Netflix was really great. They have a lot of recruiters actually on Instagram that you can go and follow and hit them up. A great thing to do is if you've ever sent in an application, maybe you got rejected, sometimes you're lucky enough to get the email of those companies, and sometimes it's as easy as figuring out the email kind of setup and knowing like first and last name at like netflixanimation.com kind of a thing. That's how I did it. That's when I was in school and stuff. I got rejected from an internship, but I had that email, and all I did was go to LinkedIn, find recruiters, insert their names into that email. Um, but if you
and
can't
just
do
kind of
that, yeah, just hoped and prayed. But
throw it in
if
there.
anything, I would say try to reach out to them. If you can, find their recruitment website, like but you have the names now. So when you send an email to their recruitment team, you can be like, "Hi, so and so," and hopefully that then will be much better than be like, "Hi, Netflix recruitment team," kind of a thing, because now you have a name, and then the Netflix recruitment email, it gets kind of sent to just a wide array of them, but if they have a name specifically, they can shoot that over, be like, "Oh, hey, this one's meant for you," and they'll send it over. And that just kind of helps give you a little more attention than just the generic of like hi studio versus like hi
Yeah,
person's name. So I always went to LinkedIn and would type in like um, animation recruitment, or I would be like Disney recruitment or Sony recruitment, and that was kind of how I kind of figured it out. Um, and it was a lot of also just doing these kind of interviews and kind of asking like, oh, what's your email or this and that. And they would have like the company email, and that's kind of how I would get it too. Also, yeah, reaching out to some artists that you admire, not being too abrasive or anything, but just kind of being like, hey, could you look at my portfolio? By the way, like, do you happen to know if your team is recruiting or anything? Stuff like that. That's kind of how I went about it. I wish I could give you like go here to find the freelance options, but I myself am also still learning how to find those freelance options. It got to a point where I did make good connections with people, like they liked the past work I did and they reach out to me here and there. So that's kind of how I keep that connection. But yeah, I wish I
so
could
it's
give you
all
like the
towards your
blueprint.
job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it's already a lot because I have the same thing because I've been working mostly at freelance. I've been having just I text people, or the first freelance I got was I got rejected for the full time, but on the
Yeah.
same email they offered me a freelance.
Oh, wow.
So
Is
it
it
was
due
a
to
bit
like
of a
any
roller
visa
coaster.
issues or anything like that?
No, it was just I think I just didn't fit the full time in
Oh,
the company,
interesting.
but I happened to fit the work that they were doing, which was hilariously backgrounds that they
Yeah.
were doing specifically at the time.
Yeah, things like that though is great if you can then reach out to them and just like whoever is your production assistant or producer, you can just be like, "Oh, hey, by the way, do you happen to know anyone in recruitment that I could send an email to and just kind of let them know of other availabilities that they may have or anything like that?" That's a good way, like even though you're in freelance, you can try to talk to the people you're working with to see if they have it. That's a
Yeah.
good way because they're already in and you're technically in, so that helps you out.
Okay. Yeah. That honestly, that's a lot of help. That's already getting me think about a lot of the things. Like, okay, maybe this is what's missing.
Yeah. Okay. And then do you have any other questions?
I was gonna say because you talked about the background design part.
Mm-hmm.
This is because I know that there is also a location design
Yes.
job, and I don't know how much you know of that part, but because when I looked it up, it seemed to be more closer to what I'm kind of doing on my portfolio. That's why I said like I'm both looking at background design, but also at location design, which I might be
Mm-hmm.
closer at. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, what is your thought on that? And
Mm-hmm.
you understand? Do you know much about that section?
Yeah, so from my experience, I was actually in the same place as you. So because when I was going to like CTN and going to different interviewing and stuff like that, I personally am more interested in environment, world building, and line art. And so when I found out I had gone to a portfolio review with, I think, Pixar, and they actually had someone who works as like a location designer, and they do more of environments and set and world building. It's like set design slash location, I think. I'm not sure the exact
Yeah,
title, but the thing is, it's more specific to the studio because if you go to a different studio, they don't have that term, or that term actually means that you're more in the 3D space and you're mapping it out with a camera in 3D, but you're not designing it or anything like that. It's more
yeah,
so you're looking through a 3D space. So I would try to avoid like location designer. I would do more of environmental artist, if anything, or
yeah,
like like set designer stuff like that is probably a little bit better of a term than location, just because location is a bit vague and it also means something different in a different studio. Um, but if you're wanting to do that in like a viz dev space, what you're doing here is good already. I would just then go in like what's big in feature. So you have to think about if you want the TV side, like the long TV episodes, or if you want to do like 3D feature. What's great is you already have this. All you have to do is take a wall. So I would just cut this wall, make it straight. Um, and a little different of what we talked about with the art that I showed you here. You're going to take that and do something. Let me see if I have any examples. Um, so you're gonna kind of do something like this. This isn't exactly it, but you would take a wall and just flat right there. And what you're going to do with like this is then have something like this. It's kind of like what we do with props, and you're just going to point out specific aspects and show them like, oh, this is the render detail that's going to be happening or anything like
yeah,
that. So you would take that scene that you have of the wall at the bar, and then you would just go in and kind of render it out a bit more because depending on like if you imagine you want to possibly ever work for like a 3D feature type film, you're going to need something a bit more rendered than what you have on your site because what you have on your site is more line based heavy, like relying on line, but your color is great. So you're going to need something that relies less on line unless you're coming up with a unique style of line that makes like this movie unique. Um, so you want to try and render out a little bit more and just do call outs of material, which is really great. It's very helpful to kind of show the viz dev people that like, oh, this person understands what we need if we ever need to do a breakdown of this location or anything like that. So it's really helpful to have that because what you have is great. The only thing I would say is that it's a lot of the same thing. It's a lot of these cutaway type things. So if you were to take these
yeah,
cutaways and then zoom in on them and really focus in, show me how you're stylizing and how you're being creative with your world. Kind of like what you did here, you're like honing in, but I would take these and render it out a bit more, or I would take one and then just point at it with like little lines and then the material image next to it. But okay.
Yeah.
So other than that, I think our time is up. But it was really great to talk to you. I hope this helped you.
Yes, it did. Actually,
Yeah.
like it gave me a lot of like a route to
Yeah.
kind of go through. So that's really great.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining in. I would say, I know you mentioned at one point also, I think you said like Sony animation was something you're possibly into.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you kind of look up Aurora Jimenez. Um, Let me just see if I can get her website up really quick. She actually did what it is you're kind of interested in. Um, Not sure if this is it. Okay, yes. So if we go to her VizDev, so this is what she did for the movie Vivo that was in partnership with Netflix. And you can kind of see how she's building these set designs, but it also has a bit of playful, it has some stylization, has some character to it. And so that's kind of like, this is kind of what you're doing, but now we have to go in and show me like what this wall looks like if the camera is over here. And that's kind of what she's doing up here, is she's showing me that. And then here, she's building the set that will be sent to a surfacing designer or a modeler to kind of see like this is what we want happening. So those would be great. She's a great reference for you to look at in terms of pushing your style a little bit more to kind of make
Yeah.
it. Because the thing about Netflix and Sony is that they're very much of they're very fun. They're very trying to break boundaries and stuff. So what I find would be the most important with your work moving on to test yourself is how far you can go with your art. Like you have really great basics of like I know how to draw a book, but let me show you how I can stylize a book or something like that, you know? So that would be a great
Yeah.
like challenge to yourself to push it so that you can show you have variety. Yeah.
That's great. Honestly, thank you for the person even.
Okay, well, it's been so great talking with you, Diogo. I
You too.
hope you stick around, watch the rest of everyone else that we're going to be interviewing, and feel free to reach out if you ever have any other questions.
Thank you. Good
Yeah,
luck with the rest.
yeah. Good luck on your journey. I hope you can break in.
Bye, streaming
Goodbye.
people.
Okay, next we have Abigail Davis. So, Abigail, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit.
Hello.
Hi.
So I am I am a mostly character designer and storyboard artist. Let's see.
It's okay.
I don't even know how to introduce myself anymore. Um it's been a hot minute.
That's all right. I'm gonna look at the
I
chat while
went
you do that.
to I graduated from SCAD in the spring of 2020, right at the peak of COVID, so that was really fun. I've been looking mostly into character design, storyboard work, but I'm hoping to also branch into more biz dev stuff. And
Okay.
I was hoping to get some advice on that. I don't
Okay.
have anything biz dev really in my portfolio yet because I
Yeah.
don't think I have enough to have a dedicated section of my website for it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
And we'll go over that. Just real quick, I was looking in the chat. I wanted to let you guys know that are watching that the portfolios, I made sure it was as fair as possible. I put everyone's emails and names into a random selector because there were just so many people who applied that all of the portfolios that were spoken to today, they were chosen at random. It's not, if you weren't picked, it has nothing against your art or anything like that. I'm sure everyone is an amazing artist, and I know like everyone wants to learn how to improve more. I just, as one person myself, I can't get through like I had like almost 200 submissions. I can't get through all of those in 2 hours. So I really hope you understand and that it's nothing against your work or anything like that. I wish I could do everyone and give you all the advice. So I'm just hoping you can gain something from the talks we're going to be doing today. So I really hope that then none of you guys like I know it's hard. Rejection is hard or not getting picked is hard. I've been there, but just please um it's not against you. I'm so sorry. Okay, back to Abigail. So Abigail, your portfolio is so great. I think you mentioned once that you had almost made it through to a Netflix mentorship program. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so they're doing the Emerging Creatives program for storyboard, and
Okay.
I got through to the second round. They're still in the process, so I don't know what exactly is going on
Okay.
with that, but
Mhm.
hopefully
Okay.
the next step after that would be
So I'm not a
an
big board
interview.
artist person, but I will just kind of like go over so people here can kind of just quickly see your boards. And they're looking great. I myself, I don't know anything about boards because boards is a whole other talent and or like skill that you'd have to learn. So I don't want to give you my opinions because I don't want to set you down the wrong path, but I do want to kind of share it with people here just so they can see your work. What I can see is it's great. What I will note is that in some of these, it would be great to see a bit more information in the background. Um,
Okay.
just you do have some here, but just remember your boards get given to someone like me. I do background designs, like, and if I were to get this, it would help a little bit to know the camera angle, and how many
Mhm.
backgrounds are going to be needed to be drawn. It doesn't have to be a beautiful background. It just has to be informative. And you had some in here. Maybe even like if say like this, oops, like say if this scene, how do I exit? Okay, were to be, oh God, an action shot, like this.
Mhm.
It would be great if like maybe you had lines coming in to show us like, oh, this is more of like a graphic background. It's not necessarily like a background or anything like that.
Okay.
That would just be helpful to indicate like, oh, there's a style change happening in this sequence. That would be great. And it shows like, oh, you're thinking about these other parts of the pipeline and everything like that. Um, so this is pretty informative too. So something like this, it doesn't have to be so crazy detailed. But like when it gets to here, I don't know where the characters are in the space anymore. The acting is great, and that's
Okay.
truly the most important thing. If you can get camera angles and acting, then you're set. But so the backgrounds don't have to be amazing, but it just helps and it shows information. If we go back to your character designs that are also really lovely, I want to focus on the Crypt Kids story that you have because it felt the most developed. I find
Mhm.
this story, it's really charming. I feel the characters you have are really charming as well. And I love the inspirations you have from it. So just looking over it, so you said that you wanted to do Viz Dev. Are you interested in TV as well, or primarily more Viz Dev for like feature and stuff?
Yeah, I'm interested in TV. I think my sense of humor fits
Mm-hmm.
more with TV than it does for
Yeah.
like more long form feature
Mm-hmm.
content.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I think TV is really great for where you're at right now. This scene, like this image is really great in terms of like the detail quality. I would just say going forward as you develop more characters, I would try to push more of like what makes a character seem unique, like what can you give them that will make them instantly recognizable. What you have going, like I find with her, she instantly catches my eye just based off of you have a lot of great it's like big, medium, and small. A lot of the times we use it in composition, but it works great with characters as well, of giving a focus and giving breather room versus everything being equal. Like with her, I feel like the size of her torso to the jacket is almost the same length as her legs. And so those are things to kind of think about. Whereas her, you have a great breakup of different shapes happening. Especially with like the socks here, and she kind of feels like the main character, but I think he's supposed to be the main character. Um,
all
so
three, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. But it's like she stands out more as like the leader of the team, and I'm not sure like if that's who
Mhm.
your main character focus is of the three. So those are things to think about too, is like how they can read. And in TV, it's really important that characters read quickly and that they read informatively. Stuff like this, is this that's this character, the blonde boy?
Yeah, that was like early
Okay. So things like these are
body
really
type
great with
sketches.
like showing your exploration. I would just, if you have a page like this, push it even more. Like show me more differences because right now a lot of them start looking the same. They all start just looking like they're waving like this. So it'd just be great to show
Mhm.
like that you have that like quick thinking creativity. You know how to give many options that all could be a different thing. So like with here, they all start kind of looking the same. So if you could really push because we only really need to see like maybe three of the same variations, and then we can go into like trying something completely different. So that could be really great for you as you create more stories and try to develop characters even more, is how you can kind of push the style as and it would be good to see more sketching versus these black ones because if you do these black
Mhm.
silhouettes, it's more important that the silhouette reads strongly, and right now, like the silhouette, the only important thing is really just his hair. Like if you were to just keep him without the glasses, silhouette him, and like, if think of like your favorite character in TV, and if you were to silhouette them, would they still read like that character instantly? Like if you think of like who's that Pokemon kind of a thing, and you can
Yeah.
instantly recognize them, that's more so what these kind of situations are for. And for me, when I look at them, they all kind of start to look the same. So you really want to try to push yourself to expand and go crazy and just think of what your character could be, what the style of the show could be, and really play with it. And that's great to show a recruiter because it shows you have ideas. It shows that you are a quick thinker and imaginative. And it just shows a kind of fun playfulness to your work. When it comes to this lineup, I think what you have is great. It's always great to have a turn. I would just say for some of these to clean it up a bit more. It's a little bit too sketchy.
Okay.
So that would just be my recommendation for something like this. The color is great to have on here. This page is really fun. I love this page. I would try to clean it up just a tad bit more. Um,
Okay.
but I think what you're doing here is great. This is also really great showing how the character is. It gives me a sense of who they are. So I think a page like this is also really fun. Um, Same with these. I think this one works more because you're playing with her different hairstyles, and that allows me to see a different silhouette of her, and is she recognizable? So I think this page is pretty good with what you have going on. And you are playing with much more different like silhouettes, which I think is good, and that you can bring into other ones. For her, she's also really great. This one's a lot cleaner, which is great to see. And then I would just kind of be careful with the face here. It kind of got a bit too squished in, so I would kind of bring it out a bit
Mhm.
more. But what's great about this is when you do characters for TV, you want to make sure that you're not overdressing them because of the fact of someone has to animate this. They have to move and they have to track the things that are on the character's body. And so with things like patches or designs only on one part of the body, it can get tricky to make sure that that tracks. And I think what you did here is really great because it's very simple, but it's also iconic. So I think what you did here is really lovely. I think just like a little detail extra you could do is maybe you could give her some cuffs on the pants to just let it know that this is where the pants separate versus them just going straight into her shoes. I think that could
Okay.
be
Yeah.
really great. I think if you ever do another project, it could be fun to see how you play with your line weights because right now you have everything all like the same kind of line weight. And it would just be great to see how you can push your style into maybe something different. Here, this is really great with expressions, but I will say it's a bit rough in comparison to the first one that we saw. So I would just go in,
Mhm.
kind of clean these up. Um, I think the biggest thing from when I saw like these pages was to showcase that you understand form. Um, and that you understand like anatomy a little bit, like even though they're characters, that it's not just always free-handed, but that it
Mhm.
you understand like where the circle goes, where the form of the line goes. It's very important to show that in character design because it shows a basic level of understanding of the human body. So I would just say when I see these, I don't personally get an instant sense that you know that, but I do know you do because based off of the other sketches that you showed before. But I would just say for these ones, I would go back in and maybe give them a bit more attention that the other one had. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
I think this was the most successful page that I saw. It was like really clean, really fun. The characters stood out. I would be careful about the braids because that's something of like tracking. making sure like we have each of these little balls in her hair and stuff like that. It's not impossible, but I would just like those are things to think about. Um, and then with the ribbon, I would just kind of try to make it a simpler ribbon than having these bends because someone has to make sure that every time she turns around that the bend of this ribbon is that way. So it's just little things
Got it.
that add up is all. This page is really good. I love seeing her character in here. This page is really great. Like I said, in comparison to the other one, this one showcases to me more that you understand the body. So I would just go back to give that one some more detail. An artist that I would recommend you to look at. So this is Micah Sharp. She and I worked together on the Casa Grande. She's a great character designer. So these are like some of the things she had to do at work. We had like a character turn around, and this is kind of like stylizing it, making it less so stiff, but it shows off the character a little bit. So this guy, he's a little
Okay.
anxious, a little like unsure. So he's not just standing like T-pose or anything like that. He actually has a bit of that character to him. And then you can just see here, the things that are in red are like props or special effect kind of things. So she
Okay.
annotated it in like a different color. Here's like great interactions between characters. And because of the show, this is the line weight style, and it gives a bit more stylization to the project. These were some fun like props that she had done. But yeah, she's a great reference for character designing and just playing with characters and stylization. So I would definitely recommend her to review whenever you're working on your projects. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I've gotta flip back to my page. Um, so I kind of fall into character design. Like that's like my instinct is I
Hmm.
always like design my characters first and then everything else is kind of an
Yeah.
afterthought. Um, I want to branch more into like prop design and backgrounds. Do you have any tips for how I can like work into that because it doesn't necessarily come naturally?
Yeah, so you've already gotten a great start with characters because you understand your characters where they live. I think one of the best like starting off points is maybe drawing their bedroom because since you know your characters so well, you should know like what their environment is kind of like. So it would be great if you could like do basically something like this in my if you look at my work, you can see so we have a page kind of like this. So this is just like a classroom scene. But you can see like I had to kind of think about what this class club is going to kind of be about, and it's a knitting club. So I tried to include things of like knitting fanatics or anything like that with like tons of yarn ball and stuff. And it was just like to set the mood because a background and prop, they're all basically in the same mindset of characters. Like it's not just a simple like, oh, here's a bedroom, here's a background, here's this water bottle or whatever. They're characters in them of themselves, and that's how you can have more fun with it as well. So I would say take like your character, whoever your main character is, and start with them and do basically like a straight on shot like that and show what the character's bedroom is like. You can kind of show what their interests are. Are they really into books? Are they really into like bugs or anything? Do they have like a lot of ghost kind of stuff? That's what you would indicate in that room. But try to also think of leaving space for a character to act. Like you don't want to just fill up the space with a ton of things. You want to imagine where your character is going to act, and that'll help you kind of leave like a little stage setting for them. And then when it comes to props, it's great. Like you have this character, they have a flashlight. So show me what the flashlight is. If it's in a viz dev, you can play a little bit more than TV because with TV, again, you have to track this item. But if we go into viz dev, you can go a little bit crazier with it. You can render it out or like paint it more, put stickers on it and stuff because it's a 3D modeled object, so it's easier for tracking than like drawn animation or moving the animation when it comes to TV. So showing me kind of yes, they have a flashlight, but why is this flashlight kind of special to them, if anything? If it is, maybe it's a different color. Maybe, like I said, it's got scratches or stickers or something on it. Give it something a bit more unique. Those could be starting off points. Like if you were to draw that kid's bedroom and also maybe call out some props that are in his bedroom. That would be great. When it comes to TV, you tend to draw the prop in the way it's being held. So this is one of my other old coworkers. His name's Ron Bradley, great designer. You can see here, so like here's some yarn and stuff. Like they're drawn in the way that the character will hold. Like so the bell, you don't have to draw like a full turn of the bell. You only have to draw how the bell is being held by the character and how it's being interacted with the character. Um, so that way you're not needing to draw like turns of the whole thing. It's also great
Okay.
when you do props that you do special effects because those go hand in hand. So things like a can of sprayed cheese shooting out or like a bird flying, stuff like that is really great. Um, yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Let's see. How can I balance showing that I can adapt to different styles and also showing off my like style as an individual?
Yeah, so usually I do that by having my projects and then also having my personal work. So it's like in the projects, you separate basically what you're doing on your page. You have the Crypt Kit and all your other projects. And then depending on maybe like what studio you want to work at and that you're sending your portfolio to, you can send that specific link. And with all the other tabs you have going on, you can basically allow them to look on their own. But I usually indicate like my my job work or like my project work is completely different than how I draw naturally. Um, I draw more graphic, more simple, but then when it comes to like obviously I want to work in VizDev, it's a little bit more rendered, more attention to detail kind of a thing. So I find having your personal work in a tab plus like your actual professional work in a tab is really great to have the best of both worlds when trying to um, deal with both. Yeah. And then any other questions?
Um, no, I think you covered them all. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, it was really great getting to talk to you and reviewing your work. I hope that this helped you out.
Yeah.
And I hope that you will keep pursuing challenging yourself in this. I know it's really hard going from like characters and storyboarding to now drawing an entire background. So just have patience with it. I think one of the biggest things to think about when you do backgrounds is again the big, medium, small, trying to make sure like a bookshelf is not the same size as a window or anything like that. Anytime I'm working on something in a background and I'm like, huh, is that why does something feel off in the background? I tend to use like the the like marquee tool, the one that you can like select and if you click it you can pull an image around. I use that and I'll hover over the thing like if it's a bookshelf and I'll catch like the size of that bookshelf and I'll just drag it around the room and I'll be like is this like the same width as like this window? If it is, I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should either make the window wider or maybe I should make the bookshelves like thinner," stuff like that, so that it's not like everything is kind of fighting for attention. You want to kind of play with that. So I think when you start on that, it's great. It's a great compositional skill to know your big, medium, small, and just making sure not everything is at the same level. Like if you have a row of books, maybe try instead of just having like a box that you then like separate into different lines, that you actually go in and like maybe some books, like two books are taller and they're maybe the same height, but then you have one that's off skewed, that's a little shorter, and it creates interest in your negative space if that helps at all. Yeah. Hopefully that wasn't just like a ton of information all at once.
No, it's okay.
Okay, well, great. It was really great to talk to you, Abigail. And I hope you have great rest of your day, and I wish you luck on all your adventures, and hopefully you can break in. Thank you so much.
You.
Okay. Next up, we have Genesis Avia, and she's loading in. So feel free to introduce yourself whenever you are ready. And while you do that, I will look at the chat.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the video.
That's okay. You don't need to include the video if that's causing too much issue. You can just go ahead and talk.
So my name is Genesis Avila. I graduated
After graduating, I went into graphic design, not really into animation.
Mhm.
I've been working as a graphic designer for the past 4 years. Uh, but when pandemic started, I really wanted to focus back into animation, so I started working on my background and portfolio. And basically, what you're going to see is everything I've worked on for the past year.
Okay. We're gonna turn into your portfolio. I remember when this popped up, I was like, wow, this is really impressive. Especially saying where you're coming from right now. It's like the work you've been doing on your own is really great. So, I feel like everything you have here is the good, like bare bones for background designing. You have like these large shots, like wide out, that you can use as indication of the environment, but you also have some of these close-ups which are really great because I can imagine a character coming into this space and acting for the shot of the TV episode. And you also have some really great usage of like color here and there and concept work. So I think what you have here is already really strong, and we're going to go into maybe things you can kind of add or things that you can challenge yourself with that can help you hopefully like land that role. Um, so I would just say this shot is really great. When it came into coloring, I think with this one, it just was a little hard to read. So if you can somehow separate things a bit more with your color, like, because I feel like everything with the color here is just kind of in my face. But if we don't focus on the color and we just focus on the background, it's a really great background. You have a great sense of style. Like you're really great with your stylization. It's like wonky but not too crazy, which is really great. What kind of studios are you interested in working at?
Well, I think my portfolio is more into TV,
Mhm.
so I'm really wanting it to go into like Disney TVA
Mhm.
or even Nickelodeon. So
Yeah.
yeah, any
Okay.
TV studios.
Yeah, I feel like these are really great for those. So things that I would just say, it's very different seeing this one compared to this one. I feel like what works the most with this scene, especially in what's going on with the shop itself, is that you don't have too many straight like very stiff lines. You're also really playing with your line weight, which is really fun. Um, and it shows a sense of style. When I get to this scene, it's a little difficult because I feel like this giant tree here is so different than everything else in here that it's really catching my eye and it's really distracting. So things like that would be to match them if you can, or add another one kind of more obvious here. Like I know you have one right down here, but it's not as obvious. So things like that would be great. And then I would just try to avoid. So something that I said with Abigail was trying to make sure that you avoid everything being so symmetrical. So like if you look at the grades, I know this is like kind of nitpicking, but if you look at the grades here, they just feel so straight. Like this section right here, I don't know if I can, yeah, I can't select and drag, but like this section here is it's like almost the exact same width as this. And then it causes perspective to be lost. So this image almost kind of feels really flat when you could really push the perspective a bit more just by like having this rise up a bit more here and like trying to vary up your shapes and your scales. Like when it comes to the bars here, they're almost the exact same width across the bars and the empty space that you have. So stuff like that is just like how you can vary things up. Maybe if you even added some character to this front gate that separates it from these ones, maybe it's a little more stylized, like it's those ones that have like swirly cues and everything like that. It helps give a bit of like maybe this is where we're going kind of a sense. Um, I would avoid this giant arrow just because it's so in your face. It's also very large because if you look at that in comparison to the building, this arrow stretches for like a very long time when it should probably end somewhere over here. So
Okay.
those are things to think about is your scaling and perspective. But this, in theory, the shot is really fun because you could imagine like a character swooping through the side and coming straight for us, which is really great. Like you're showing a great sense of um, what we call like guiding the audience to where you want them to look. And that's so important when it comes to background designing because you don't have a character in the scene. You're trying to showcase where the audience has to look for the specific scene that's about to happen. So what you're doing is really great. Other things to kind of watch out for are tangents. So like here, I would just, if you could grab that branch, move it up or move it down because it's like touching that pole. So I would just avoid things like that. But yeah, I think this scene was also good. I would just watch out again, watch your scales. Like I would go in, like I said, use like that marquee tool. You just like draw a box and take it and go against everything. And if things are becoming too similar in size, especially for something like this that is in perspective, you got to change it. You got to scale things down or make things wider so that perspectively it matches. Because right here it starts to look kind of like you just took the one image and kind of brought it down versus like scaling it and warping it so that it kind of looks more in perspective. So things like that. Um, but these two are great in terms of a style together where you have that mix. I would try to play more with your straights versus curves so that it makes more sense. Like this tree looks different than this tree, so just try to have them make sense in the same world together. Like here, this is believable because these trees are kind of all matching along with the palm trees. This one is really great. You could even add like how I mentioned with Diogu is draw characters in there with silhouettes so we could just kind of see where a character would kind of play in the scene. But what you have is really great. Another thing that's important when it comes to background design that you don't always think about is typography and graphic design, which is great for you because you work with graphic design, is to include posters and signages and things like that that can help just add a bit more to the space. Like, so if you had this either opera or movie theater kind of scene, I would just love to see like little posters drawn in here or something to show me like what kind of acts have been here before or anything like that so we get a sense of where this place is beyond it's a theater. So that would be really great to have. I would also shrink this light down or bring it up because it's a bit too much um, in the way. It's like distracting me a bit too much than it needs to be as a light, especially since there's no other ones. Like if you were to maybe add another one somewhere up here that is going in perspective, then it could possibly make sense, but it's just one random light, so I would either take it out or try to figure out how to make it work in the scene. Um, and so this one down here was really great. I think just if anything, play with your line weights a bit. You have a really great sense of line weight that I've seen before, and maybe like to give a sense of depth with just line, like you could have this line that's up in the front of the store be thinner than what's going in the back of the store, or you could have it be thicker in the front and thinner as it goes back, because as it recedes, maybe that's how you show off perspective is your vision gets a little blurry as things recede, so you could have the line work get thinner so it's less obvious. So stuff like that shows little attention to details because otherwise if everything stays in this thickness, you know, it kind of causes everything to get flattened. So it would just be great to showcase that a little bit more. But in terms of how you're decorating a scene, it's really great. Maybe play with your type a bit more, make it feel um, a bit more like in the story, like if it's handwritten, if it's a family shop, you know, it'd be great to get that kind of vibe in there. You could show like maybe it's a little dirty or like maybe there's wear and tear, like it's been there over the years versus like this brand new sharp kind of stand. So that would be really great to see too. And like thinning out some of these lines that are in the table because it's just the same thickness as everything else around it. It's pulling away from the churro icon. If you can just like either thin them out or maybe have them not interfering with the actual icon, that would be great because then it just takes it away. So if you had them like pinching somewhere around here or maybe draping downwards, like you had straight lines, like not straight, but like just lines coming down, that would be pretty great. I have this wonderful artist. Where is she? So this really great reference as well in terms of like stylization. Um, if you were to maybe try backgrounds with outlines too, how that would look like with just grayscale. You did some of them when you did a grayscale version of them. So seeing how they work without lines is also pretty fun. So these are also fun ways of like playing with your line weight and how like the outer sides can stay thick, but maybe the inner parts they stay thin. And it's a great way of stylizing and playing with your sets. Here as well, you see how they have all these like little graphic images within their sets and their backgrounds is also really great to include. But yeah, so this is Kayla Jones. She's really great to reference. I'm not sure if she has any other ones. I think that might be it. Um, so yeah, do you have any questions? I know that was a lot of information.
Oh, no, it's all good. Yeah, I only have one question. Since I'm starting off as a background designer,
hmm
how would you tailor your portfolio once let's say I want to transition from background to biz dev, how would
hmm
you tailor that portfolio and
Yeah,
still keep the background design
I
for
mean,
TV as well?
I would just do like how you basically have already is different tabs. So you have different tabs per what you're doing, and you just send in like you have a props tab as well. So it's just something like that where you would then have a VizDev tab. And then whenever you're applying to a specific company, you would just send them the link to that tab. And if they want to, they can then go exploring your other ones. But you've directed them to where they need to be directed. So those are options for you. When I was starting out, I had a TV section and I had a VizDev section, and wherever I was applying, I just sent them the link to that specific section.
Okay, sounds good.
hmm And then anything else?
No, that was it. That was my
Okay.
only question.
Okay, great. Well, it was really great talking to you. I hope that that helped you. Your work is really great. I feel like if you just add a bit more tweaks, maybe make some more backgrounds of interior environments instead of only exterior, that could help you as well. Sometimes even having a story to focus on just allows you to have more to work with than just coming up with random backgrounds. It's great to just follow a story and that helps you be like, okay, if I have this story, I'll need a bedroom, I'll need a kitchen, I'll need like the front of the store, stuff like that. So that could be good to just make a list of like what I need to draw kind of a thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Angie.
Yeah, no problem. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay. Um, we have Olivia next. So need her to join in the chat. Okay, great. Hi, Olivia. If you could just introduce yourself,
Hi
that would be great.
there. Okay. Okay. I am Olivia. I think I just got my video to work.
It's okay.
Sorry. I'm a mostly self-taught artist. I currently work at Essence Cartoon as a character rigger and animator, but I have always dreamed of getting into prop design, so that's what I've been working on.
Okay, great. So you're more into prop design world, which is great because I have great reference for that as well. So your work right off the bat also really great. Um, it's really fun. I love the story that you're working with, which is really helpful when you're trying to create these things. Um, so I think right off the bat, what you have is great. This page is really fun. And then you have vehicles, which is also really great as well. So like overall, what you have basically is strong. I think ways you can challenge yourself a bit more or to add more is to try a different style. So what you have is really good. Everything just tends to be the same line weight, and also everything tends to stay fairly realistic. So if you could try playing with things, maybe seeing about designing things a little differently, also thinking about like how we said the big, medium, small. So if we were to look at this bicycle, the like width of this piece
Mhm.
to the width of this piece is pretty similar. The width of this part to this part is also borderline similar, and all these like tubings or like rails, they're also pretty similar. So things like that, basically this is a great drawing, but the way you can help individualize yourself and make yourself a bit more like, oh, we should hire this person, they seem creative, is to push yourself more in like your composition of a prop, um, and kind of making it a little more than just standard, because then that shows you have a unique view
Mhm.
of things versus like drawing from life. Um, because you want to have a reason for them to want to hire you. So giving your art a unique voice is really important. Um, so I would say what you have right now is really strong style-wise, and I would just maybe add another project if possible, or play with style. Like if you were to have this rooster, like what if like the chest actually came out a lot more and the legs were like really small, or maybe like the
Mhm.
back tail was really huge, stuff like that where you play with your scales, you play with composition and like giving this thing a little fun character to it, because your characters themselves have that proportion, have that playfulness. Um, and overall, these props work great with, like, together, they work great. They match with your show. It's not like your props are completely different than your characters, so that's great. I would just go in and kind of maybe just play a bit more. Like if you had this axe, like I know you have this little leaf coming out, but that would be a little bit hard to
Mhm.
track to make sure that leaf is always there. It would be great to see like maybe this is wrapped around with like leaves, like longer leaves and stuff. Like it's not just a bamboo, but it's wrapped around.
Gotcha.
Or maybe the pieces of these bamboos, they're not so like all the same size. Maybe some are slightly longer, a little shorter than one another, just varying it up. The same with this basket, instead of everything being the exact same width apart, maybe you can have like this
Mhm.
piece, it's actually shorter, or like this piece, it's a little bit thinner or wider or stuff, or maybe you can indicate little um, like texture lines that are inside to indicate the wood, or a hole here and there. And that just helps like, give it a bit more than just like, here's a basket full of apples kind of a thing. It gives a little bit more character to it. So if we look back at Ron's work again, so you can see here, he's got like, so we have a pan here, right? But at the bottom, he has like fun little hatches going on here and there, and that just gives it a bit more character. Like pizza that he's drawn, it's like shows like the type of pizza. Like it's not just like beautiful, pristine pizza. It's kind of like the cheese is drooping off, and you can like feel that. Um, Same with like some piñatas and stuff here. It's not just like a straight up horse or like these milk cartons. They have like fun little details to them. And of course, that goes into the style of the show, but it's also how he works with it so that he can make it a little bit more unique, and playful and joking and stuff like that. So even here, when we have items that are kind of realistic, based off of how he uses his proportions, it just kind of reads a little bit nicer than everything being like the exact same. Like he could have had this tube part here just be one straight line. He didn't have to, separate them out like this to give it volume, but he did, and that it gives it volume. It gives it much more interest than if it was just one straight tube and you just drew a line through it or something like that. And here too, we have this cannon. And like I said, you can see here he has some textures going on in the wood, which would be great. You can like use a thinner brush to do that so it's not so in your face with the exact same size of your other brush. Um, and just varying things up a little bit so it's a bit more playful is always really fun. And yeah, I should have
Gotcha.
another one. So this is Sochi. She's amazing. She does characters, but she also does props. And so these are just some of like her ways of stylizing things, kind of giving it a bit more character and fun to things. And then
Mhm.
let me see here. Oops. So here is also some work that she did in the Casa Grandes. So like here, the oops, I don't know if it's showing, but this one here, it just showcases kind of like a bit more wear and tear to an item, um, versus it just being like a chair. And she has some bikes here as well. And it just shows like how she's thinking of the design and the composition of an object versus just drawing the object the way we would normally view it. Like even this grill, she's
Mhm.
playing with the scale and with the shape, so it's not just like a straight up and down grill. So those are things that you can think about when you're working on your own work and stylizing these. But like, so something like this is just a little too thick all around. If you could play with varying, like maybe the stuff inside is thinner, like this is working well. Like right here, you have a thinner line. So if you can just play with those more, make sure perspective wise, like I think this is the other wheel here, I would bring it down because it's not matching the perspective too well. Like this is almost going like diagonally down versus like across this way. So watch out for your perspective when it comes to some of these objects. Oops. Okay.
Gotcha.
And then do you have any other questions?
Yeah. So I was wondering because I have seen like a difference in people's portfolios, and I'm not sure if that's just a preference or not, on if I should color my props or if that is something that's just for the color designers, or how I should go about that.
Yeah, so color designers are the ones who deal with coloring. I guess it's just people wanting to see it colored, or maybe they don't know that they don't need to color it. But yeah, it can vary. But if you're wanting to do props, you don't need color. The most I've ever seen with color on a prop is just to indicate like a special effect is going to be on it. But other than that, you don't really need to do any of that kind of thing. Yeah, it can just be like black and white. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I was also wondering, because I do think I do have a very TV animation driven portfolio, and I would love to work in TV animation. But one day maybe I would like to switch over to being in a more feature production.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if I was going to be, if I wanted to switch over to a feature production prop design, is that just more of a viz dev kind of job, or is there really a place for prop design in a feature film?
Yeah, no, when it comes into that, they're not split up into different sections. It's one job. So it all goes under that concept or visual development job. So in order to do that, you also have to be a great painter. You have to be good at like composition and styling for doing other things, not just there is like a section for just props, but it's not really under like prop designer. And you can tend to do like dressing of characters and stuff like that. I'm not 100% on the exact wording of it, but if you do want to do that, then I would go in and make another tab for something more feature based. And when you do your props, try to render them out more, like actually give them painting styles to them. Like it doesn't have to be rendered to look exactly like the object in real life, but it should be rendered in a stylized way. It should show that you understand how to paint, you understand how to light, and that you have character in your props. And like how I showed in my portfolio, so I did um, this project. Let me find it. I did this gourd that a character has on his back, and I drew it and I painted it to a rendered degree that I felt in feature they kind of used. And then I also included like a sketch to show options of how the character could have it tied up. And then I gave reference of what is used for what object and how it's seen, and I gave some variations as well. So stuff like that would be great for feature when you're doing prop designing or anything like that. Um, in this project I did as well, this project was a bit more realistic in its style. So that's why the props matched to that. And it was just like making sure the render kind of matches. So like this leather notebook does like how is it in your world stylized? In mine, it's a tad bit more real. So I have it painted a bit more real. And then I gave textured references on the side. So that would be great to include in a portfolio if you're going to start doing that. Um, it would be great to show. Yeah, as long as you have the technical skills, that's the most important when it comes to viz dev work, is how you stylize and if you can render to a degree.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Is there any other questions that you have?
I think I'm okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Have a great day.
Thank you, you as well.
Yeah. Okay. So next up we have Kyle Perel.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. I'm Kyle. I'm from Brazil, and recently I've worked on Valorant video for Riot Games,
Mhm.
and and illustration for League of Legends Brazil
Mhm.
for YouTube channel, and I've been in a transition phase that I love so much illustration, but I can work it in visual development
Mhm.
and not so much illustration like for video game or splash art for
Yeah.
mobile games.
Mhm. Okay. So your end goal is to somehow get into like VizDev or possibly background paint. I think you had mentioned to me once.
Yes, yes,
Okay. So let's take a look at your portfolio. So this is really great already based off what I had seen earlier. You have obviously a great sense of lighting and coloring, so that's already you're halfway there. You do have like some of that experience already. So what you have experienced before is gaming, you said, correct?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, and you want to break into VizDev. Okay. So
yes,
technically, in a sense, you are already in VizDev, you're just in the gaming section. Um, and now it's just transitioning what you know from gaming and the process of VizDev into there, and now relating it back into feature or animation for like movies. So things that I would say based off of what I've seen here, you have a lot of great like you're very great at stylizing, but also doing life. I would say one of the things that you could then do, let's see. So you have this Cinderella project. I love how you stylize this character. I love the line weight that is in here, like how you're using thicker lines to call out shadows. So I think that's really great. Stuff like this is great. So what is always really helpful, I guess, in just honing things down, because it can be hard to kind of think of um, what to do is starting on a project. So if you were to even just take this Cinderella project that you have and then show me world building, show me like the house that she's living in, or show me what this specific scene, like if this is in front of her little home or if it's in like the back garden area, kind of show me what that looks like. If we looked at like how Diogo did his, like how he did those cutaways, you could add something like that into yours. Um, to show that sense of world building. So that would be really great to have here because you have this great scene, but then it stops there. And I would just love to see more about this world and what makes this Cinderella interesting in your eyes and how you play with props and how you play with like storytelling narratively. Like, how does she react once this character, I guess the fairy godmother, appears before her because we only see her back. So things like that could be a great jumping off point. This was really fun to see. How you have exploration. I would maybe want to see more versions of it because I only get the one image
yeah,
and then a cropped image and then your reference. I would love to see maybe variations you had of this truck. Or maybe we could play with like making these butterfly wings even more like fantastical because at this point, this is a bit fantasy already, so why not push it further? Because what you have here is good and it's like it's still a little bit more in reality and we want to see like maybe how you can make it a bit more fantastical because you're like kind of teetering. So I would say either make it real or just push it and go fantastical. And that kind of shows off your ability to like play and design as well, which is really great to showcase for Vista. And it's not
yeah,
necessarily to say like you ever need to change your style to match it, but if you just showcase your ability of like big, medium, and small stylizing and how you have fun, that's also really great. So this is the work you did for Valorant, right? And so you
yes,
did all the lighting and the coloring.
yeah. Was PG painting?
Okay. So you painted all of these.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's amazing too. Like that's
and
already a great showcase of your skill there. So I would just say like if you ever need something else, I would just add like another storytelling element. Um, these are really fun to see studies of. It's really great. I would just, like I said, I would recommend having another focused story if possible, just so we can see your ability to do world building. Because you have really great paintings, and I would just like to see, because if you work in VizDev, if you want to stay on a project longer, it's best to be able to do a lot more things. Because if you only do um, like if you only want to do the big concept kind of stuff, you're only there for the beginning portion of it. But if you don't want to work on like the more rendered things, you kind of teeter off at that point. But if you can draw props, if you can do environments, if you're great at painting, which you are, like lighting and stuff, you have a better chance of staying on the project longer because they'll need you for different parts of the project. So I would just say like you already have a great story here with Cinderella. I would just play with it more, see how much more you can get. Like maybe show us where she sleeps, maybe show her before and after. Like you have this really great version of like a medieval style dress that she wears. So maybe show me then the transformation dress. That would be really great to see. And even if you did a painting of the scene like at night with beautiful sparkles or stuff, like show me your version of Cinderella's transformation, like from your point of view. And that allows me to see how you yourself are creative with retelling this story. Does this make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Um, I have a few notes,
Yeah.
but all was answered yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
It's already answered. But
Okay.
I wanted to show you in my portfolio
Yes.
one project that is a various iterations where
Okay.
that is this character Blue,
This
Spirit
guy?
Guardian.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this is really cool. So stuff like this is really cool. Um, but things like this end up more in character designing. And character designing is separate from visual development artwork. They're different jobs.
Oh yeah.
So it would just be like this is amazing. It would just be like if you're sending in a portfolio for VizDev, it it's not as necessary. Um, what would be great is if like you did have this character, like this is great to have regardless, but if you ever go like further on, um, like if we relate back to like the Cinderella project, if you show me different variations of her outfit, that kind of works in your favor for VizDev as well. What you have here is great in VizDev in the showcasing of you have ideas. So that works great. It's just um, obviously, if you're sending it in a VizDev portfolio, who's ever looking at it will understand like, okay, this isn't that they're applying for character, it's just that they understand how to design. So you're safe there. But this is a really cool drawing, and all these iterations are really
Oh,
cool. So yeah, this is really sick. I like this. And you have really great
oh, thank you,
variations of scale and sizes and figuring out what little details. So this is all really fun to see. So yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And in portfolio that I have
Yes.
this more visual development and characters. It's nice to make a division in my portfolio, like two links, one
Yeah.
for character, one for visual.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not very used to ArtStation, but I have seen some people when they make a post, basically like what you have here, where there's like several things, they'll just make their entire portfolio. So if you made a portfolio here, like um, that was separated, like if you had one more character or if you had one more like painting or VizDev, you can send that specific link when you're applying. And then if they want to, they can exit out and they'll see all of this, I'm sure. I'm not used to ArtStation,
Oh
so I'm
yeah.
not sure, but I did see with some people that they had something like that where they just had, if you click on it, it's their portfolio and it's like 15 pages of different works and stuff like that. Versus with this one, it's for me visually looking at an ArtStation, it's a little difficult for me to like know that this, like I wouldn't have known that this image includes all of these unless I clicked on it. and it's just a lot to click through and then I have to exit. So it's just nicer to send in all one link, your whole portfolio. It's just easier. Um, so that could be a good option for you as well. It just is
Yeah.
more accessible to more people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It was really great talking with you, and I really hope that you're able to build on a new project and that you're able to break in, because that would be amazing. Your
Yeah.
artwork is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, have a great day. Okay, see ya.
See
And
you.
next up we have Nicole Castro Santiago. And while she's loading up, I saw a question um, from Minru, and it said, should we only include hatchings if it's going to appear in the final look? I wonder if it's something that will confuse the pipeline down the line. So if this is related to TV, then yes. Um, so hatching in that of itself, like doing those line marks, you want to avoid too many of it, especially if it's not a part of the style. If we looked back at Ron's work with like some of the details that they did, um, this is meant to be there. Like that's how it is. And those lines might get colored by a color designer, and that's fine. Like this is just the style of the show. The show is heavy in hatching because it's comic book based. This isn't to say that it would relate to everyone's project. This is just how the Casa Grande style is. They have hatching, they have comic book vibes to them because that's what they're pulling reference from. But this is basically what he's showing you here. This is what he would send to the next pipeline. So this is kind of how it would look like. It doesn't confuse the pipeline unless it's either too out there, which the art director would catch before it gets out there, um, or if it just doesn't make sense for your project. If this is just how your project is, like these line works for wood and stuff, or these tiny little hatches, they try to avoid overusing their hatches because of the fact of tracking can be difficult. Like if it's an object that's going to move constantly, then yeah, you would avoid too much hatching because it's going to be moving. But if it's something that just kind of is held in a certain position for the scene, then it's a little bit fine because it's not moving around like a ton. So I hope that kind of helps. Um, Great. Okay, Nicole, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. So I'm an animation student here in Puerto Rico. I'm graduating in 2 weeks. So yeah, my interests are BG paint and BizDev and also illustration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah.
Okay, great. Let's see. So what kind of studios would be your like dream studio?
So I think it would be like Disney TVA,
Mm-hmm.
DreamWorks.
Mm-hmm.
Netflix is doing really cool stuff too.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay. So just looking at your portfolio right away, I think you're very great with color. Like these ones stand out the most, just like, oops, how fun these kind of read and how colorful they are. So you said you're more in painting and VizDev, or can you repeat that part for me?
Yeah, BG paint and BizDev.
Okay. Yeah, so I would just say to maybe try more paintings because of the fact of these two are really strong because you have something that's really bright and then you also have something that's slightly moody, which is great. And you're also playing with a slightly monochromatic palette, but you're giving me a bit like more push. Like you have a lot of green here, but you're breaking it up with the blue, and I have a sense of character acting, which is great. An issue that happens is that then these next six scenes are all the same color. And that's
Yeah.
great if like because obviously if you have work, you and there's this scene going down a mountain, then yes, there would be all of these same color schemes. But because this is your portfolio and you're trying to showcase the best work you can, I would try to vary things up. Like I would do maybe three of the best of these, and then maybe try some scenes where you get away from these green and blue colors because you already have a lot of blue, you have a lot of green and gray, and this like peach tone. I would try to show me something that's like at nighttime show me something that's at the afternoon or midday and in the morning, stuff like that. Maybe show me paintings of
Okay.
like a bedroom environment versus only natural world environments. That would be really great to see.
Yeah.
Um, it just showcases kind of how you understand color in different areas, and also it's your chance to show how you view color and your stylization of it all.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can find one of these artists. So they don't have a website, but so this is an artist that worked on the Casa Grandes, um, and this is really like a fun sense of color, you know. Like you can really see how she plays with something that's at nighttime versus something that's at daytime, and she plays with her version of like grass against the building. Like it's a little bit more toned down versus something that's like really deep dark grass against a vibrant blue sky and gray buildings. You know, she's playing with warm tones and how those relate to one another while also not being in your face, which is a really intense skill of like being able to do all these things. So it's a really good reference to have as well, for what you can kind of do within your work to showcase different levels. So if you were to show me this painting, but maybe if it was like still waters and it was nighttime or something, that would be great to see. This one is
Okay. Yeah.
fun because I can tell it's supposed to be like kind of night, but I would almost try to push it to be really moody. I mean, you have this red sun or like eclipse kind of thing happening, and if that
Mhm.
were to happen, you know, in the real world environment, light would be completely different. It wouldn't be this grayish blue. It would either have like dark red undertones or orangey kind of like hazy, like an over cast of like fire stuff kind of. So things like that showcases you understand the sense of lighting and color. Because this one, it unfortunately is not giving me the best sense of mood. You have this sign saying beware, and you have a crow, but it's not scary enough to me. So your job as a background painter is to make me feel scared with your color. So stuff like that would be a great practice for you to kind of add to the portfolio so you break away from all this green that you're showcasing. It's great to vary things up. It's also great um, to do studies from life, like go outside, take photos, and do paintings based off those. Um, those were probably the best things for me when I was trying to get better at painting because I was never the biggest painter. I didn't really like painting graduating out of school. I kind of stayed away from it like the plague. But after graduating, you know, I had opportunities given to me from freelance that were involving painting, and I didn't get them a lot of times. Like I had a freelance gig happen where I was trying to test to see if I could get a background painting position, and I ended up not getting it. And because of that, I was like, you know what, I'm really going to try to improve my backgrounds more. So I started doing digital painting of all these still lifes, like plein air paintings, and I just tried pushing over time. I started more real, so like this was probably the first one that I ever did, if it'll load. um, and it was just a scene that I did when I was driving, and it's more real. And I did try to play with color a bit more, so it wasn't such like a harsh light. Um,
Yeah.
and then over time, you know, I started learning like how can I stylize things? How can I play with color more? Like this is obviously way more stylized with the mountains and the clouds and the color too. It's just more pushed based off of like real life painting, like kind of styles that I did before. So doing these kind of things is really great to kind of help you out. And it's also really great to showcase to a recruiter because it shows that you understand real life painting, but you do also understand how you can play with color, and you can see like there's a obviously because I have a lot of trees, you see a lot of green, but then I have pops of blue, pops of pinks here and there, um, which I think could really help within yours. It's a lot of green, so I would try to pop in some other kind of colors. And it could be like you reference TV shows that you do like and you just watch those episodes. You know, your homework is to watch TV. You watch those episodes and you basically like pause on things, and you can do like a pause and paint, and this is just for you. You don't have to post it on your portfolio because you're basically like studying off of other things, like watching
Yeah.
movies, watching TV. It's great to pause on scenes that you seem to like and do a little study based of it and see what it is that you like about it and what are things you can pull from it. And as you do it more and more, you'll start keeping it in your brain and you'll learn like, oh, these color patterns tend to match well together, or this lighting scenario works to create like a moodier scene along with these colors. So stuff like that, really testing yourself and practicing is really great to improve and to add more to your skill in a short amount of time. And yeah, do you have any other questions that I can answer?
So I have questions on the like VizDev side. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have anything on my portfolio yet of
Yes.
VizDev, but I wanted to know if you had any tips for that,
Yeah, so if
for like
so
building a VizDev
yeah, you want
portfolio.
to do VizDev. Do you imagine yourself doing like concept work or more so painting?
I think painting, more
Okay.
painting.
So again, like how I mentioned before with BizDev, it's a lot better if you are capable of doing everything, but it doesn't mean like you have to. Painting is a very important part in that side because of the fact that you're basically bringing color to the movie. So what you will need though when you do these background paintings is an understanding of like lighting. Like it's really important because
Yeah.
if you watch any of your movies that you love, you know they have a great sense of lighting and color, and some of it is real, some of it can get really like fantastical. And so your job again is to do that. So if you're making a BizDev portfolio, like I had said before, it is helpful to pick a project just because it allows you to focus in. Um, and it can be pretty simple. Like I remember when I was doing my TV portfolio, I based it off of an entire week that I had spent with my friends from high school. During college time, I had like some breaks, and I basically every day in a row of a week I spent with them. And I took photos of the places we used to hang out at, and I did line art drawings of them. I took it down off my website, so it's not there anymore. But that was like a simple project. Like it didn't have to be a redesign or anything like that. It was just a project from my life that I had done. And so if you were to do a version of that, like you would take photos of the environments that you're in, but you would bring them to a level of rendering that matches with the feature industry. Um, and then
Okay.
you would just kind of pick from there, like whether it, like you can start off with maybe painting your room or coming up with a character and design their room. Design like if they're in school or something, you can design their school. But a lot of the times with VizDev is the importance of storytelling. Because if you ever look at those art of books, you know, you see the scenes with like characters and how they're reacting with another character, because those are basically movie moments. They're parts from the movie that need to be painted so that you can show it to your art director or to the producer of the film to be like, this is how our movie could look like. This is the emotion we want to get in this scene. So it's also important to know how to paint and draw characters within your backgrounds. It's not like you're only going to be painting backgrounds because it all goes hand in hand. You get either a 3D model or you get a storyboard and you basically draw out the entire background. So you're also responsible for background designing and composition. Um, so you have to have great composition skills to draw this entire background, and then you also do the paintings within it. So if we look back at, if I still have her up here, Aurora Jimenez, so this would be like what I'm talking about. They're referred to as like key scenes or blue sky paintings or things like that. And it's basically just a moment from the film that is going to be needed. Like say your art director's like, okay, we need this piece that is going to encase the character and his pet, and we want to show a sense of loving, like this is a family, they care for each other, you know, he lives right by the coast or something like that. And so your job is to then paint the entire scene but also design it. So in the background here he has lots of sheet music. It shows he writes like music and stuff based off of his environment. You can tell his economic status, kind of a thing. So those are things to include in your piece. Like this is more different. Like not all portfolios are going to have this. This is because in their project they have a graphic um, scene, so they have to paint and design what that's going to look like, and you can see the strong sense of color that they use. So that's also important to have in your portfolio. Um, and so stuff like this
Yeah.
you'd see, it's very like fantastical and fun. It's not super rendered out. It's more big picture kind of a thing, but the color is still really important. So she's probably a really great reference for you. But if you're going to do a VizDev portfolio, just know you will need characters in your backgrounds. You're not only painting backgrounds unless you're doing it for a set design piece, which you would then do.
Mhm.
Like I had to do a thing from start to finish of concept to finish of this one scene. Um, and I did only just have to draw the backgrounds, but then I got a movie moment scene where I then had to draw the characters within the background. So stuff like this is really great to see where you have the background painted without characters and then how the characters interact within that space. So yeah, things like this you will probably need within your VizDev portfolio if you're starting off. Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Um, oh, I also had a question regards like the around the BG paint side.
Mm-hmm.
If you would recommend doing like line and color for backgrounds or just a more like painterly color sort of backgrounds? Because I know it kind
Yeah.
of varies because there's like every show has a different style.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, it does
But yeah.
vary, and it's up to you with, I guess, also what you feel confident in, like, um, and also what you kind of want to do. It's great to preference with it that it is background painting, and they'll be able to understand because you won't have, you would just avoid using black and white. You would only showcase color pieces like how you have already. Um, and you already have a
Mhm.
lot of great ones without line art. So if you wanted to test yourself with line art, you could do that as well because things do change once line art is involved. So those are really great to kind of test out. I don't really have like an answer because it's really up to your preference. The most important thing though is showcasing a great sense of color. If above all, whether you have lines, you don't have lines, if you have a great sense of color, an art director will notice that. And that's the job you're trying to get in for. So that's really what matters. Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
Okay, well, it was really great talking with you. And I hope that
Thank you.
you'll be able to do all those other pieces as well and update the portfolio. But your work is really great, and all
Thank
you have
you.
to do is just challenge yourself more. Yeah. Okay, well, it was really
Thank
great
you
talking
so
with
much.
you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Bye. Okay. Next up, we have Minru. So if she'll join in the chat. Hello. Hi there. Oh, you're buffering. Um, you need to unmute. Okay. Try talking.
Oh
Yeah, we
no,
can
I'm
hear you
lagging.
now.
Can
Yeah, I can hear you now.
oh the screen. Oh, okay, okay. Um, so I'm Minru. I'm a concept artist, and illustrator from Singapore. So I have an art background, ranging from 3D to storyboarding before I jump back into concept art and illustrations.
Okay.
So in general, I'm looking to work on story moments, revolving around characters, and as well as color scripts, kind of painting or even illustrations for children books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So one of the first things I'll say is because I would like everyone to hear this is that so color scripts themselves are not necessarily a job. That's something more the art director gets to do. So I think what you probably, when you go moving on into the future, it would be more you would say like key scene paintings or narrative paintings versus color scripts because the color script mainly is involved to the art director because they're the ones basically keeping the movie in line and you're following kind of that direction. So that's just something to keep in mind moving forward. So let us find your portfolio. And great. So we'll go into your concept work. And so I think from what I had seen before, your characters are really great. I really love how you're playing with them, especially how interesting this kind of, oh, it's so zoomed in. This kind of story is with these clock characters. I think it's really fun and playful. And then the characters you have here is really great. I'm assuming these ones are from work, but it's really great because you're showing me the different variations that you have, especially with the props. So overall, your design-wise, I think is great. When it comes to viz dev, it's different from character designing, and especially when you're doing narrative pieces, I would love to see more of like, I would have put more of this instead of concept art into character design, just because that's mainly what's here is just characters and some props. Um, if you want to keep concept art, I would kind of start introducing more scenes with the characters interacting, like how I had shown with um, this artist, Aurora Jimenez, is like kind of showing characters within an environment and how they act in that environment. So your characters are very interesting, and so I'd love to just see how they are in an environment together. And I think you have in illustrations them in these pictures. But the thing is that it, like, this would be a great scene, this one right here with the clock, if you pulled out the image more and actually made it like a movie moment. So you could have this character here as like the big boss. We don't entirely know. I don't know what his character is, but if I were to come up with a story plot, you could have this like big scene and maybe he's like a mafia boss, and you have like another clock character here either being like pushed down, like he's being forced to talk, or maybe it's really intense and there's just a bunch of broken pieces left there, like they had just like offed him. Um, and it really gives you that sense of like, ooh, watch out for this kind of character and stuff like that. And it gives the storytelling of the scene. So those are things to think about with this kind of stuff. You have a lot of like these scenes with the characters are very vertical, and a lot of the times in animation you want them to be a movie screen format, which is about like 16 by 9 or so, like something like that. Um, I would say the format that you have here is a little bit hard to tell. Like, it's hard to tell if any of these connect or anything like that. So I would just edit your portfolio in that regards. It would be great to see a tab that is just of these clock characters, if that's a story that you have, and then you can give me more of those like VizDev kind of movie moment scenes. So if we go to here, so just like some, this was like a project I did when I had graduated school. So just things like this where I have a big environment piece scene, I have thumbnails of what my scene that I'm going to work on could be, and it shows how the characters interact in that scene. And then I have narrative scenes that have characters as well as like here, I have a big movie moment scene with the characters interacting. So I would love to see more of that within your work because right now I'm just getting snippets of scenes. So like this one is really beautiful. I don't know how big it's going to be when it's on the screen capture, but this is a really beautiful scene. And it has a really great sense of your painting and your color skills. So it would be great to just like if you had a project too, just following this little car around and seeing where they traveled to, that'd be another great project that you could focus on. With these, this is really great. These two moments here with characters, I would just try to focus in on these backgrounds a bit more. They're falling too far in the back when you do need to think about the backgrounds, especially when it relates to storytelling and characters. Because this is like a coffee shop, I guess it doesn't need to be so detailed, but if this was like a room or something, it would be great to know more about that character, especially like this one where they're all sleeping on the couch, it would be great for that as well. Um, and so you have all these other scenes too of characters. I just feel like some of these don't need to necessarily be here. I feel like they kind of add a bit of clutter to your page. Like this one with the girl looking into the bathroom mirror, like that's really great because it shows a great level of rendering, but also it shows a character in like a moment acting, which is really great. These other ones, they're pretty good too. They just don't have the strength of some of these other ones you have up here. Like these other ones you have, they're pretty strong. So I would try to do editing. Same with some of these backgrounds here. I would render these a bit more, show me what the material of this roof is, because that's important for VizDev is to showcase materials, try to make your piece look as similar to the movie as it can or give the vibe of that movie. So how like she has in here, this one that was up here was a lot different than the other rendered work we had seen from her. This one, it's like more just stylized, more fun, more colorful, and that gives the essence of what the movie is. And then she does also have like these more detailed and rendered that match more of the style. So stuff like that, it's like you can see that the material texture call out is happening here. You can see some of that material being called out here, same with the wall. So I would just say when you're working on some of these, like giving me some detail of like how light hits some of these tilings and just cleaning up some of these lines a bit more would be great because it all seems pretty rough. Um, and just showing me maybe like a character flying or something, like why this scene is important. Explaining that to me would be great too. But yeah, I think other than that, your work is really strong. It's just things of like editing and combining projects. Like I would combine all these projects and just also work on these characters and how they act in movie moments would be great to include. Do you have any other questions?
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a great advice, Angie. So I think for questions wise, I think one main one is um, maybe you can share a bit about what's the difference between concept art and VSTEF, because so far I was thinking that all these type of story moments or paintings would fall under concept artist. So I uh, address myself as that job title.
Yeah. So just from my experience, the only thing that I can say is the differentiation is possibly like gaming versus feature. I think gaming tends to be more, they use the term concept, and then feature, they just made the VizDev title. Um, I mean, I think it used to be concept before, like you were just an artist who did that, but over time it became the term like visual development. I don't remember who kind of coined it, but then everyone started following. They're basically the same thing. Because in concept, you're conceptualizing things, visual development, you're visualizing the development of the project. So they're basically the same thing. It's just whatever you're applying for, I think. In my perspective, that's what it means. Viz dev, though, is like a catch-all term for being able to do concept work plus painting plus prop designing plus environment designing. It's like you got to be good at everything. It just doesn't really include character designing. Oh, yeah. Um, because character designing is in its own kind of field. You do things that like involve dressing a character from here to there, and it's always great that once you're in that VizDev role that you're adaptable and you just like sometimes can talk to your art director and be like, "Hey, I'm kind of interested in like trying this thing." And if they're very accepting of it, they might give you that kind of work and you might get to do that. Um, but yeah, in terms of answering the question, to me they seem like the same thing. It's just like different studios use different terminology. I know in feature it tends to be more VizDev. I think in gaming it can be more concept art is the term, but I personally um, that's just my experience with it.
Mm, okay, I see. Can I ask another
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
I was wondering, how do you think that we could increase our chances when it comes to applying um, as international applicants? Because from what I observed so far, the companies uh, that are generally recruiting people who are located regionally.
Yeah, so it can be difficult when there are regional issues, visa issues, because a company is probably less likely to hire you if you need a visa just because it's pretty expensive on their end. And they wonder, is it fully worth it? And if you are like truly worth it, they'll go for it. But I understand that is a big difficulty when it comes to breaking in if you're not located in that area. Um, when it comes to just applying in general and getting a best chance, I personally think it's setting yourself up for success, knowing which studios you generally are interested in and seeing does my art style slightly work with them. Like so if we were to use the example of Disney TV or Nickelodeon TV and stuff, like Nickelodeon TV, they're very fun, they're very humorous, they're silly in their storytelling, and they're very like family oriented. So you wouldn't imagine that someone with like a hardcore kind of portfolio, super realistic, is going to instantly get into there because the portfolios just don't match. So you kind of want to tailor your work not to completely match them, but just know like that the styles line up, that they could work together, and that a recruiter could imagine you would fit well in that company. So that's the first thing is making sure that your work even matches the company you're trying to apply for. Like it's not like if you had a super cartoony art style, you're gonna go like apply over at like League of Legends or something like that. It's just they don't match. Um, so that's one thing. Another thing is making sure that like your resume is pretty good, that it's not too much information to it or it's not too little information, and just making sure that you're having keywords in there, it's not too cluttered. And then adding a cover letter is also really great. Not a lot of people do it. It's a nice little way of like a recruiter being able to hear your voice while you're not being there. Um, so that's always really good to have. And just making sure that you go do research on recruiters, like how I had mentioned in the first one. I had gone in and looked up recruiters' names or anything like that. And when I sent in emails or in my cover letter, I kind of addressed that person's name in it, just so that when they receive that email, um, they kind of know who to send that to or keep a lookout, or just kind of it's more personal to them versus like just the catch-all of the studio. But yeah, that would probably be my advice on giving yourself a head start to that, is just like setting yourself up for success for that. Um, but honestly, it can be pretty difficult just because of the hiring timing. It's not always about your art skills or anything like that. It could just be the timing isn't right, or you applied a bit too late, or they're not looking to hire yet. So it's always just keeping a pulse, and like if you can get in contact with a recruiter, just sending updates and just being like, hey, if you're still looking, like this is my portfolio again. I'm also available for freelance if that's an option. It doesn't have to be full time, stuff like that you can kind of do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is very insightful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks for joining, and I hope this helped you. Yeah. Okay. So next up, we have Mimi Simone. Hi.
Hello?
Hi.
Hear me okay?
I can hear
Hello?
you, yes.
Oh my god. Hear me okay? Oh, this
I
is
don't know if you
echoing.
can,
Let
yeah,
me see.
mute
How do
the
I? There we
stream or
go.
something.
Oh, okay. I can't watch the
Yeah, you have to
video at the
mute
same
it.
time.
Yeah, it'll create an echo.
Oh, I can watch it, but I can mute it.
Yes.
Interesting. It seems to still be echoing. That's
Oh,
weird.
I don't really hear an echo now. I don't think I do.
Okay. Cool. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Okay. Let me do that. Okay. Here we go. All right. So, I'm Mimi. I graduated from the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in 2020, and it's a fine art school, so I didn't have a lot of guidance into getting to animation, even though that's what I wanted to do. So my portfolio was kind of like all over the place because I just kind of did what I wanted, and no one was telling me what was what. So the past year, I've been trying to work on that. I've been taking some classes at Concept Design Academy and trying to get my portfolio more towards specific jobs. So it's in process. It's still
Yeah.
it's still a little scattered. So um, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So we'll go looking at your portfolio. Oops. I had this one already open. How do I exit? Okay. So First of all, this is really great. It's extremely strong already. I think you have pretty good base bones for applying to places, especially you said you were learning things on your own.
Um, yeah, and from online classes and stuff.
Yeah, so these are really great. I think you have a really great sense of lighting and color, especially pushing something really crazy against something that is more like natural in lighting. So like this is a really amazing portfolio just on its own. And I think the only thing I can say um for VizDev wise is if you were to do like what some of the other people were doing with background designing and take like this kitchen scene and maybe do a cutaway of it and show the environment and the world building of it. Um, because you have these are basically like these movie moments, narrative scenes that you would be assigned based off of like a storyboard or something, and you have the lighting, you have the character, so that's great. So now what you need to do is showcase, you can keep the job for longer. So you want to show them that
Mhm.
you can do basically like I think you have some here prop designing and stuff like that. Let me see.
Yeah, I do actually have. I did another piece of the kitchen. If you go down there, oh, wait, somewhere,
This one. Yeah, okay.
somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
so this is really great. I would keep these all in one
Yeah.
project. It's just easier. Um, and that'll catch the eye a bit more than us then needing to go to like a second area, especially if you're sending this link into a portfolio submission. It would just be better to either like you could keep it separate if you wanted it. But since this all seems to be one project here and then you have this other project, it could just be good to have an overall section somewhere here that has
Hmm.
your the name of like the title of this one, or you could have it in like VizDev or something like that. Um, so that could
Right.
be good
The
to
only
have.
reason why I put it there was because I was applying to some background painting, and I wanted to
Hmm.
have everything background painting related in one section.
Yeah, so
So that's why.
I would do like what you have here. You have the character design background. I would do character design and prop, and then I would do background painting as its own thing. Um,
Okay.
and then you could have had all of that in there. And then because it's like when I come to your screen, like your home screen, you want to make sure you're showcasing like basically like this is all really great, but it could be good like someone just coming in. If you just pop in a mix here and there, um, that could be helpful. But what you have here is already really great. So
Thank you.
yeah, so like your painting is really great, everything. I would just say, if anything, um, for this scene it's okay, but it's just like, stuff up here. Watch out for scale. Like I would have made a lot of these a lot thinner so that we get a sense of the depth. Because if you see like an actual ceiling, like this piece, it's actually further away. Right now it's like the size of her head, but if this was actual, it'd
Oh,
probably like be really big. So
you're right. Oh my
details like that,
gosh.
yeah, details like that are important because this gets kind of sent to like a modeler or a lighter, and so it's just helpful for those little details to be there. Um, so yeah, just little perspective things is good to have. Watch out for too much warping. Um, like it's fine because it tells with the story, but just be careful about that. Also, because of the fact of the perspective coming in here, this like suddenly like that dresser is like really close up to the screen when it would probably be further off the scene. Um, and I
Mhm.
just feel like it'd be better if like maybe this was a little pushed out and you just have like focus like a slightly empty wall here and we can just focus on the shadows coming into him. I think that could be pretty good. But other than that, I mean, you
Right.
have some really great stuff here. Um, Yeah. So I would say your color and lighting is good. Things to work on would probably be little details. So like in this background too, like this character moment is beautiful, but then once I'm done with that, I start looking at the piece more and I just see kind of simple things when you could set dress a little bit more. This window seems a bit too perfectly straight for something that looks like it's man-made. Like especially like this line going straight down, maybe having like slight warp to show me the texture of the materials and stuff. That could be really great to see. And those are little details, but they add up and they show that you're noticing those details. You're thinking about the character of the backgrounds and everything like that. So that's really great to have. Going into like your background designing work, um, I saw these and these were like amazing. I really loved your sense of your wonkiness, but it's not getting too wonky, and also your ability of doing thin to heavy line weights is really great. I think these two were the most successful to me that I had seen here. Right here, this is really great to see. I would just say push it more. It's a bit too simple to me. It's just like it kind of looks like the building has a hat on and stuff. Whereas you could play with it, like what's so special about this house? Who lives here? How can you make it a little bit more interesting? Like um, maybe have like a watering hose somewhere, a watering can to show like that there's like life happening here because it kind of just feels like a set. So adding a bit of character can also really help out. Um, oops, let me see. So this is that. Okay. So, and then there's like this tree here and like everything. It's really great. This is visually a great sense of directing the audience. So I think this is pretty successful. I would say if anything, I would have like maybe some of these clouds bringing the audience back in, but what's happening already is really great. So overall, you have a really great, strong sense of composition. So you should be really proud of all of that. Your technical skills, they're really great. Um, yeah, you have a really strong portfolio. I would just say cleaning it up, making it kind of work together a bit more, um, watching out for perspective and little scale issues. Um, these are really great as well. Um, and yeah, just like these prop things, I would kind of just tie them in because it says background and props, but you only have two props really, so I would just put those in with the story it connects to, because it's not enough to really
Okay.
warrant its own section. Um,
Right.
and then your character design is also very strong. You have a really unique way of like characterizing these characters and also giving them that big, medium, small, like focus. Not everything's too even, which is really great. There's a fun sense of style happening here. So yeah, these are all really great pieces.
Thank you. Yeah, I probably like character design the most, but I feel like it's too hard to get a job in. So
It
I'm
depends.
trying to do more background.
When it comes to animation feature, it's hard because a lot of the times those companies have their people, but it shouldn't deter you from ever trying to apply because you never know when you're going to just find the right team that just like they like your style. I feel like your work could be really great if you applied in like TV. There's a lot of preschool channels, and they kind of are pretty similar in this style that you have. Um, there are some like 3D TV show kind of things you could do. I wouldn't stop you from applying for character design in at least like TV or anything like that. You might have a better chance, you might have a stronger chance in that. So I would definitely give that a go. I wouldn't deter yourself just because it's hard. Because if it's something you really like to do and you find joy in it, you should just try for it. And I think what you have here is really great. Basically, you have all these characters moving, like you have the turns and everything like that. You have them acting together. You have a great sense of scale. So I think you're in pretty good shape with that. It's just, going in and applying. And that's hard, but I'm sure you can over time you just keep trying.
Well, that's encouraging to hear.
Yeah. Okay, do you have any other questions for me?
Um, could you go over again how you were saying I should reorganize exactly? Because
Yeah,
I
so
will do that, but I wasn't sure exactly what you were saying.
yeah, so I would just try to do background painting instead of background and prop. And then if I would just take your props and put it together with a story. Um, and so like I would just put all your projects based off of your, what is it? You're the boy who wished to be a skeleton. I would just put them all together. Instead of Illustration, you could possibly put VizDev, um, and then you
Right.
can have a drop-down menu like when you click it, it'll have the boy who wished to be a skeleton, and it will have this other project that you have. I'm not sure which project this is. And you would have like a
It's
drop-down.
the problems, yeah.
So let me
Okay, yeah,
see.
and then probably add more props to them as well.
So if you see like at my website, I have this concept VizDev section, and it's just like both terms. I didn't know which term was the best term, so I have both. And then dropping down, I have 3 different stories happening. So you could do something like that. And then you can have your other projects that are background painting, and that you can send that specifically to when you go and do a portfolio for background painting and stuff like that. So those are options that you have.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, my stuff is not organized because some projects are like big projects and some were just like one-offs and they didn't really have a location. So
Yeah, it takes time to really like learn how to kind of get everything together. Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. I should have thought more about questions, but no, this was great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Happy to help. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, I hope you have
Thanks
a
for
great
doing
rest
this.
of your day, and hopefully this will work out. Just make sure to try to apply to any chance you have, whether it be an internship or job, like just send out the applications now. Um, like I know it's scary, but getting rejected is better in terms of getting mileage than not applying at all. So that's always something I keep in my head. But yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Bye
problem.
bye.
Thanks for joining. Okay, and next we have Gina Beneducci. And then she'll be joining. Hi, Gina.
Hi.
Feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi.
Feel free to introduce yourself. Oh, you might need to mute your video.
Free to introduce yourself. You might need to mute.
Oh, not the call, the YouTube video.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Let me start my video too. Okay, hi.
You're gorgeous, by the way.
Stop. Thank you. You're very sweet. I'm gonna blush. Nice to meet you. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, glad you're here. Feel free to introduce yourself to everyone watching.
Yes. So my name is Gina. I recently graduated from Parsons in New York with an illustration major. Parsons didn't really have an animation program, so I was pretty much self-taught in that sense as far as VizDev goes. So I'm most interested in VizDev and background design and paint. And yeah, I would really love to work for Sony or Titmouse because it's close to me in the city, or Netflix. But I'm open to anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let's see. Where did I put your portfolio? I think I need to type it in. I think it's this one. Okay, great. Okay.
That was me.
Let me see about how we can scale this so people can see it. Okay, great. Okay, so right off the back, another great portfolio. Your work is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have a lot of great sense of mood and color, as well as a great sense of composition and line work. It's really impressive, especially being like taking it on your own and being self-taught. In terms of things that I see right off the bat that maybe could be touched on is just like the amount of information that you have. There's just a lot going on in these scenes that I think you could tone it down a bit. You don't need to necessarily that, or if you took like an eraser tool and just a low opacity and just knock things down, or you give weight to things and shadow. So if we look at like what's happening down here on this railing, if you were to just hit the last one, let me see if I can zoom and if it'll work. Yeah, so right down here, if you were to hit it with a thicker line or to indicate some form of a shadow or to take even like an opacity, like you circle down here, make a square shape, drop in a dark color, lower the opacity, and give it some shadow, I think that could help a little bit too. It's just like there's a lot of detail going on. Um, and it's added by the fact that you use a textured brush, so it adds even more detail. So I would just say be careful about things like that, especially time wise, because when I worked at Nickelodeon, I would get like maybe 10 to 14 backgrounds for 2 weeks. And that included 1 week to do roughs, the second week to do a final drawing. And so things like that where it's like, yes, I had a week to do like the roughs, but I technically had 3 days because then I had to show my art director the next day, make notes, and then start on the finals, which then I had another 3 days to do because I needed time to show my art director again and then also submit it in for production. So you have to be quick and smart about some of these designs. You're not always having like a day or so to do them. So that's why it's good to show these works. Like you can do the detail work, but it would great to be able to see some pieces that maybe showcase a bit more of like a simplified design, not so detailed that it seems like you may have spent a lot of time on it. So that could be really good for you. And just also breaking things away with thin and dark lines. What you're doing here is really great. Like you have the thing in the front being a much thicker line, and as it goes back into space, the line kind of gets thinner. So I think that's really great. Um, Again, watch out for too much detail happening. Like it's great to have these kind of graffiti works, but maybe you can make them more visually interesting and simpler versus just having a ton of information on there, because it just becomes like too much information, too many things that need to then be painted or anything like that. So that would be my like one remark to you is to see about how you can kind of hone in and not overwork a piece too much. What they are is very beautiful. Like I'm not knocking any of that. I would just say like try also a version where it's not just a lot of information in one scene, especially since it would be great to reuse the scene or we're going to have to see that same room from now a different angle, so you'll have to redraw everything all over again and it's just a lot of information. Also, I would watch out on scales, making sure like the the height of this piece is almost like the same width as this one and just like making sure that like maybe stuff here could have gotten thinner. There's tangents, like things like that. The spacing between these are pretty similar, so just watch out. Perspective wise too, this wall is going in here, but this window is going onto the ceiling, so just watch out for stuff like that. Um, and then this line here, I would make it darker, just like how you have on this post here to pull this table away, because it's kind of, the details are so equal that it's a lot of information. Um, so this is also really great. Love the colors. Again, watch out for the details. It's just like there's a lot of information, plus they're almost the exact same scale that you lose a sense of focus. So just watch out for that. And the distance between like windows and stuff, like you could play with that. But it's still a very beautiful piece. Just little things to think about will help create almost like a unique style for you, and also show your ability of composition and thinking about design. But it's all very beautiful. Here as well, the same thing, too much happening, so just try to be careful with that. When it comes into like viz dev for movies, it's the same thing, because someone has to you have to draw all those paintings and then someone has to model each of those papers and then they also have to like model and it takes time, it takes money. And depending on the budget, it'll work. But you also want to showcase how we can understand who this character is with maybe not as much stuff. And it can depend. What you have here is really great. I think you could just pull it back a little bit, is all I would say.
Simplify.
Yeah, simplify. But
Yeah,
it's
simplifying.
really great.
I've been working on that a lot.
Yeah. But all in all, it's really great. Again, little things like this is how you can make this a bit more unique where it's not all just the exact same like straight line, but maybe you have some notches in the wood. Maybe one of them is slightly thinner than the other, stuff like that, where it's a little more unique. And then where it hits here, you want to show that you understand depth and it's not just like single lines. If this is like biz dev, you want to show that understanding because here you have it. You're like showing me depth here, but I think you forgot to perspective wise like draw something here because it's going straight into a perspective angle. So watch out for that if you need to edit that at all. Oops. And yeah, otherwise, all of this is really great. This is also really fun. I feel like this is almost getting there. Like it's crazy, but it feels slightly simplified, if that makes sense. Like it kind of makes sense, but I would not have things here on the floor because that's where a character would kind of move around in. Um, and just this is so much darker than everything around. It like seems like it needs attention, but then I would just move the chair out of the way because a character would be sitting here. Um, but yeah, so a lot of this, like the references I'm giving you is more TV based because this kind of work is more TV based. It's less feature. Feature is more like this kind of stuff that you have, and like this. So just when it comes to your line art stuff, I'm thinking about more TV, and then your other ones, I'm thinking more biz dev. These are really great. This is a very beautiful, like concept kind of piece. It's a great sense of lighting and color. I will say, if anything, um, try to watch out for how dark things start to get. You have a lot of like intense color burning kind of vibes going on, which is great, but I would love to see variations, especially when it comes to biz dev and like how we had seen with Mimi's work earlier is having characters within those environments. And that's another reason why this feels more TV to me is because there's no characters and how they act within these scenes. So it'd be really great to see how your characters kind of are in this. Like if you have like this bedroom scene, like maybe we have the camera over here looking this way and we have your character sitting on the bed and maybe they're checking their phone or something. Like we have a movie moment. So that'll help you with your Viz Dev portfolio. And just like these are really fun seeing your characters interacting. Like it'd be great to see maybe the skate park scene. You do a scene where they're like skateboarding. Um, and yeah, do you have any other questions?
Yes. So currently, this was my first Viz Dev project my junior year, so it's old. But right now I'm working on a new personal project.
Yeah.
And it's on the portfolio. I haven't had anyone look at it yet because it's still in the early stages and it's just like sketches and
Okay.
ideas. But I want like recruiters and anyone on my website, it's the first one, the last bat.
Okay.
On the left. But I want
Yes.
recruiters to know I am actively working, but even I don't really have anything finished. It's just sketches. But do you think it's worth just to keep updating it with what little I have? Because I do want people to know I am working and
Yeah,
not
I
just
mean,
stagnant.
there's nothing wrong with that. You also have the whip in there. Like that's what I would have recommended is you put the work in progress annotation to it, so that they know it's work in progress. Um, but yeah, that's basically what I would do. You could always put a little comment in the top if and just like if you can add text and be like, currently
Yeah.
working in progress on this project, updating frequently. Make sure to check back in and see something new. Like you can give them an incentive to come back, kind of a thing. And if you have like social media, you can always be posting on there and just being like, just updated my portfolio. Go check it out, stuff like that.
Yeah, got it. But yeah, the 201 was like my senior thesis, and that was more, like you said, TV
Yeah.
oriented, but I know I definitely prefer feature. I love like designing and rendering and
Yeah.
painting. So I think ultimately I'm a better fit for feature, and that's what I'm doing with like the bat project that
Yeah.
we were just looking at.
Yeah.
So what do you think, since I'm still in the early stages, what do you think I can include in that project that would help me stand out the most, or what do I immediately need more examples of given the rest of my portfolio?
Well, definitely, um, having some solid characters is helpful. And like I've said before, having those key scene moments where characters are acting in the environment and we get a sense of like, think of it like a movie playing in your head. This like think of this movie. It's like and pick a shot and draw that and add some in. I would do like 4 of them at like
Mhm.
minimum or so. So and different moods, different like moments, so they get a sense of your project and what you're good at. What you're doing right now with the environment and showing us the style of the environment is really great. Like this is really fun. Maybe showing this and then afterwards showing me a key scene of like your character finding this place or something like that.
Mhm.
And how they react to it would be great. But yeah, that would
Sounds
kind of be
good.
my advice to that. It's just a bit more world building and key scenes. If you were to take just this rock formation and then put it on its own page really big here and then have like lines pointing out from it for texture callouts, that would be also great to see. So a texture or like modeler will know like what the texture of that leaf is or how you're designing these rocks. Like it doesn't have to be a real life rock. It can be your interpretation of a rock, like texture material. So I would do something like that as well, and that's really important when it comes to viz dev work. You do a lot of those breakdown pages where you'll have to send a packet over to modelers. So it needs to be broken down so that it helps them understand in modeling and texture what this final product should kind of look like. Yeah.
Okay. And just one more little question.
Yeah.
VizDev, since it's like its own category and kind of encompasses background, character, and prop, when I'm doing, I guess, background designs for the VizDev project, how would how would they look? Because it wouldn't, because I feel like TV is more like line works. But if I for the VizDev project, would it still be considered like a background design? Like, does that make sense? I don't really know how
The
to
what
differentiate the
would be
two somehow.
considered background design is like if you had been watching with Diogu and like his work, so kind of these cutaways type of a
Right.
situation would be good. It would be like what it's similar to is like set designing. Um
Okay.
because there's not like a role of only drawing backgrounds because when you're doing that
Yeah.
you also have to draw the characters experiencing the movie moment. Um so that would be more of like say you have this cave, basically what you're doing already with this cave. So you have this, and this would be kind of a background designing. You have to show me what the cave looks like. If a 3D modeler was to build it and say in this scene, we're actually going to see a lot of the scenes, we're going to need to know the whole peripheral of this area. So I'd need to see all of that. Or if it's like again with the character and their room, or if this is like a mad scientist, it seems, show me what their laboratory looks like. That would be
Yeah.
part of the background designing portion. And like the props would be like the elements they actually interact with. So like her beakers and stuff like that. Show me like what's special about it. Show me the chemicals that are inside it and your version of the chemicals. Basically like what you kind of have going on here, you can kind of design. I would look my when I was at this point of my time, I went to go find the movies that I liked and I went to the end credits and I looked at the VizDev artists that were working on the project, or I got the art of books and I looked up the VizDev artists there
Yeah.
and I searched up
A
their
lot of those.
portfolio and just looked at the work that they had in their portfolio and used that as my base point of reference when I was working on my project.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That is great advice. I think those are all my questions. Most of them were answered in
Okay.
the other
Yeah.
reviews.
Yeah, great.
But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. This
Yeah, thank you for
clarified a lot for
joining.
me.
Yeah, I'm glad I
Thank
could
you. I
help.
appreciate
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for applying, and I hope that you're able to break in.
it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, thank you for joining. See ya. Okay, we have 2 more left. So we have Eric, Korsgaard, if you would like to join in. Oh, is it Gabby next or Eric? I forget. Gabby, were you
I
up
believe.
next? Oh, okay,
Yes.
Gabby, you're okay. Sorry. Okay, Gabby is up next then. Okay, Gabby, Kieran.
Hi.
Let me see. Where is your website? Okay,
Um,
yes. Go ahead. Feel free to.
it's
Oh
a
no, I
little
have
bit
it.
laggy.
Yeah, feel free
Hold
to
on, I'm gonna
introduce
see if I
yourself.
can take the video off because it is lagging a little bit for me.
That's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, we'll see if that works a little better.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Gabby. My name is Gabby Karen, and I'm just super happy to be here. The work that we've been seeing all afternoon has been really impressive. I'm super inspired by everybody's background work. But I am a character designer and a concept artist for the games industry primarily. I just graduated from the University of Alberta just this spring, so more of a fine arts portfolio was what I left with there. So a lot of my work in concept art has been kind of self-developed in that way. So yeah, I'm just super excited about pushing my work further, but it is more games centered. So a lot of the work I'm doing is pushing more towards realism. Um, and yeah, I'm just really excited to see where that goes for me.
And so would you say that your end goal is to be more in games?
Yes, I think I'm definitely pushing more towards games. I do like want to keep it open, of course, going to entertainment. I think that I would love to like learn more about the animation industry, but all the research I've done so far has really primarily been in the games industry.
Okay, I'll try to see as much as I can help because I myself, I'm not a game artist and they are pretty different when it comes to certain things, but I'll try to give you the as much advice as I generally know for stuff like this. So let me,
Of course, yeah.
okay. So right off the bat, really great work. Where would you want to say you would like most advice from if I had to go into one of these tabs?
Yeah. I think the one that I'm constantly updating right now is just the character general tab.
Okay.
Those are more for like projects that don't have like a huge thing. The other two are kind of indie games that I've made with a group of students. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is already really great. Um, like I said, I don't fully know for gaming, but the most I can tell you is they tend to go more realistic. Um, and so it like the character setup that is slightly different from what you would think with designing in animation, where it's very much making that iconic character that plays with big, medium, and small. From what I've seen with gaming, they still deal with those elements just so it's not like a picture. Um, and then but they keep things a little bit more realistic. So I think what you have going on here is really great. I would say visually, if I compare it to what I have experience in, all the color tends to kind of mesh the same. And it's a little hard for me to read this character. So if it's even just like giving this jacket, either the jacket is the really colorful, crazy part, and what's inside is a little bit darker, less of this like mix of the chromatics, even if it's just this waistband belt. If this could be simpler and less like reflective, it could help separate it from these pants. So that way you can keep like the top and the pants reflective but without pattern, so they're simpler than the jacket, and then the waistband can allow us to have a bit of breathing room because there's so much pattern going on. So things like that could be helpful when you're thinking of your character as simplifying um, with complexity. So keeping that in mind could be great. Also seeing an exploration of how you got to this character would be really great to see, like maybe different hair explorations, maybe then focusing on the character themselves, doing material callouts for the outfit and inspirations that you had would be really great. Just to do breakdowns that could then get sent to a modeler or a texture person as well. So you kind of have them down here, but I would love to see just a page with like maybe her over at the right and some information on the side, as well as maybe a detailed call out of the outfit that she's wearing if it's like special at all, or maybe any tools that she has on her would be probably really great. These are pretty fun. I would just say they're not different enough to me. They all, like, silhouette wise, they're all the same. So that would be something else I would love to see pushed more is like the only different one I can see is here, and then this is the only like different leg I can see. But in this, they're all like the same like of a rod coming down with a boot. So if it's even like playing with how the rods are, playing with the size of the boots, playing with the design of the boots, that it's not just the exact same design constantly, and doing research into prosthetics if this person is someone who uses prosthetics and like what the future version of a prosthetic could look like within your story is also very helpful into coming up with the character and thinking about who they do and like what they do as a person and what kind of material would lend themselves to that. Um, I find that as a thief per se, I feel the clothing is a bit bulky for someone who needs to be pretty swift and moving around. So those are other things to think about as well. Um, but yeah, I think giving us a sense of your world building with a character is really important, especially like coming up with what time period this is, what you imagine the technology is at that period, and how that affects the character themselves. And maybe like giving a more unique style. I don't know if this is the same person or not. Is this the same character?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all explorations for the similar
Okay,
concept.
so
Yeah.
like if you had this character concept with these prosthetics in here, that would help too, to break off with all these other similar ones. So I think that could be good.
Okay, sweet.
And then just in here, I would kind of do what you're doing here, where you're showing the inside, the darker part, just in the hood, so we can get some breathing room there and see her face a bit more.
All right, perfect.
Yeah. And then these
Yeah,
are
so my
going
other
to,
designs
yeah.
are like more.
What other
Sorry, I was
designs?
just gonna say they're more illustrations.
Okay.
So a lot of them are having to do with that, and I say like the illustrations that are probably like more like present or like current are the ones in the Archimage tab, that project. So yeah, a lot of those are like more visual development, I would say, or like character scene development, etc.
Yeah, so again with visual development doesn't deal with characters. That's character designing,
Right.
and stuff like that. So this is more just like you're playing with characters. Um, you don't really need this grayscale stuff because it's pretty clear that this is grayscale. So I would just like not include that. And I would just put all of these on one page where we just see you exploring with her action and her fighting. I would love to see you exploring with her hair since it seems like she has different hair. Unless these are different people, then I would do a call out
No, these are
page.
different.
Okay, if they're different, I would do separate and just have the names and about the characters, kind of stuff like that, and the exploration of that character next to them. Um, and then this, if it's a turnaround, I would just keep it cleaner. See how you can stylize the hair so it's not super like loose and crazy. You want to show them that you have the ability to be sketchy, but you also have the ability to have tight rendered work. And right now, a lot of these just feel really sketchy. Um, and they all seem to be completely different from one another. So I would try to hone in on how you can unify all of these because they just seem like a bit of random images and less of a more um, kind of unified story, if that makes sense. I have this
Okay, perfect.
artist. Let me see. This is a friend of mine. Uh, and so he does a lot of characters in like game aspect kind of situation. You can see how he's playing with like cleaner lines, but also showcasing his ability to paint. So those would be really great for you to like apply as well. And then he showcases the tools that the character uses. So like if you had your story um, with this character, it would be great to like have the character and also show me a detailed version of the prosthetics within it. Like show me how they kind of work together, show me your rendering skills because a lot of the time in gaming, you need to paint to the render quality that it needs to be. And then this is his more sketchy style. It's not it's like clean but also sketchy so that it reads a little easier. Um, it just feels a little more polished than having a lot of extra lines. So I would just look into that and kind of hone in a little bit. I think that could help you out. I forget the name of other friends that I have that also work within gaming. I'm blanking out on them right now. But yeah, stuff like this could be really good when you're coming to work on a bunch of characters and trying to make a lineup of them and have them feel different. So I would try to avoid only doing black and white, like what you have for the Arcanmage page. I would try to color them in and like kind of give them a bit like try not to get too detailed in the hair because someone has to model this and they can't model like every single strand of hair because in gaming, that has to track. So they tend to be more of like set pieces of hair. So try to think of that as well, stylistically, of how you can simplify things, but also keep it in your style of detail. I think that could be great.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Do you
Thank
have
you
any other
so much.
questions?
Yeah, I have a couple that I have wrote down just
Yeah.
based off of where everybody else was coming from.
Yeah.
So I am like a recent grad, and I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty and stuff like that with COVID. And so I guess a lot of my questions are not like based specifically on my portfolio, but more just like around navigating this time between graduation and like being employed. So like I guess my first question would have to do with like these entry level positions that I'm sure a lot of people have been noticing like require years of experience just going into them. And I'm like, okay, well, you're entry level, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to start with you and where where would I go with that, you know?
Yeah, I remember when I started interning at Nickelodeon, I actually interned in the recruitment team, and I had asked the recruiter, I was just like, a lot of the times when you guys post up jobs, it says you need like 3 years of experience, but it's like when I'm coming straight out of school, I don't have that. So how should I still apply to those things? And he said that at least when it came to them, they used a template and then they just kind of kept using it and it just kind of kept saying the same things, but it wasn't necessarily to deter anyone. Plus, in a sense, you have experience of being in school. While it might not be a job, you could use that in a sense of it depends how you word it of like you have the experience from your schooling and learning. It's not like you just came fresh off the street or anything. You have some experience. And for those, I think it comes down to how you word it. Um, but yeah, so it's really just like trying to apply anywhere and everywhere, getting the rejection and constantly keep on going. Because I was in that same spot of just like trying to reach out to whoever I could. If I knew anyone who was working in the industry, I just asked if they knew of any job openings coming or if there's freelance options available. Um, yeah, it's just really about fighting for yourself and trying to put your best foot forward for yourself. Um, it can really depend. Like you just never know. And keeping your work at a level that is necessary. Like if you see people who are working at the jobs you want to work and see the level of their work and compare it to the level of your work and see, am I there? What do I have to do to improve? Constantly you yourself just working on your portfolio in the meantime. Like you shouldn't think like, oh, because I'm not getting a job, I should kind of give up. It should be like, what am I doing wrong? At least for me, when I wasn't getting those painting jobs or anything like that, I kind of was like, well, okay, I need to just get over it. I need to learn how to paint. I need to stop being afraid of it. I have to work on it to just make myself that much stronger. And it helped. I started posting those pieces online and an art director saw it and he reached out to me and it was like, I really like the work you're doing here. It matches the project we're on. Would you like to join in? And that's how it was for me. And so I guess having some form of social media presence during this time is important because a lot of recruiters are online looking for people and they themselves are just online looking at art. And if they gravitate towards your work, they'll want to hire you on board too. So it's crazy. Like I got my job at Netflix. I don't really know how I got it because I had sent in applications, I got rejected, or I had people saying like, "Oh, we'll get back to you," and they never did. But then I remember like following someone on Instagram, and then a couple days later they had reached out to me and they were like, "Oh, we're interested in interviewing you for this job over at Netflix." And I was like, how did they find me? Like, was it because I followed them online? Like, I wasn't sure how it came to be because it's like all the applications um weren't working and the person who emailed me was the person I followed. So it's like maybe they finally saw my work and thought it matched in that specific moment. It's all about timing too. So I wish I could have an answer for you, but it's just it's hard. Like you never know, but all I can tell you is that the animation industry is pretty much like booming. They're working throughout this time. Gaming, I'm not entirely sure about. I don't know how that works out because I've never really delved into that, so I can't give you 100% an answer on that. I'm sorry. Um, all I can say is just apply, just try to get as much as you can from that, um, and just try to be on to like on social media, pushing your work out there, improving your work. Um, and it's like at that point, having those like 3 years of experience doesn't matter because it's more of your skill that really matters. So if your skill is there, then like they tend to overlook those experiences because your work matches what they need. Sorry, it was like a really long
Right.
response. I was like trying
No,
to
that's
remember what the
perfect.
question was as I was talking, and then I got back to it.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's been great.
Yeah.
I do have a question
Yeah.
just like regarding burnout. And I'm sure this is something that you've been asked a lot and like
Regarding what?
every artist burnout.
Oh, burnout. Yeah. Okay.
Like
I get that.
yeah. So like what is your like experience with that and how do you navigate artistic burnout?
Oh, I'm just like I'm in burnout right now, honestly, if I'm just like completely honest with you. I've been working ever since I got out of school, and me personally, just where I'm at in my life, I've always been afraid of not working. I actually thought finally, like, I had this job right now and it was like a 3-month gig, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna reach out to the other companies later. We'll see if like they want me or not, but maybe I'll finally get my break. I'll finally get to rest. But then the studio hit me up and they were like, "Would you like this job?" And I was like, "Okay, I want work. If you're gonna hire me, let's do this." Um, I find like the only ways I'm able to stay sane in the meantime is when I do have those free times. I hang out with like my friends, I hang out with my partner. I have pets. I have a little rabbit. I got 2 kitties recently. I try
Oh.
to like smother myself in like endorphins if I can. Um, During COVID, I've started picking up like crafts and stuff, and those kind of help me stay by. When it comes drawing wise, I personally I mainly draw for work. I don't really draw in my free time as much unless like I'll be doing my actual work and I'm like, "Oh, I have this idea." And I just open up, I have this Photoshop file that's just sketches and I'll just sketch in there and then I'll close it and leave it again. Um, but I'm like sometimes I feel bad that I'm not constantly producing new work and putting it on my social media, but it's like, I'm getting to the point where I'm okay with like keeping that separate and just trying to have fun at the same time on my own life. So yeah, me navigating burnout is just trying to make free time to hang out with friends, eating the food that I like, playing with my pets, I guess. That's how I just try to separate myself from art, um, and just rest, even though like I'm constantly very busy. That's just how I do it. I read some manga too. It's like watch some gaming channels. Like that's just what I do to like release it and go into a different world. I don't know if that
Oh,
helps.
thank you. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
um, my last question is just like a little bit more like pertaining to portfolios.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for like things that you see, like common things you see in people's portfolios when they're trying to get into visual development or concept art, um, that they just shouldn't be focusing on? Like things that everybody kind of puts into their portfolios that you're like, okay, they're definitely not going to look at that. Maybe divert that like attention to something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what we've talked about here all day today is kind of focusing in on what it is you actually want to do. There's a lot of times where people do like they'll do viz dev and they'll throw everything in the kitchen sink into it. But it's like but then sometimes during the conversations I've had with portfolio reviewers, they'll tell me actually they like something else more than the other. And I was like, "Well, then why don't you just show me that? I would much rather love to see what you actually want to do versus what you think you're supposed to do." Because it gives you a better chance. Like, yes, you may not have the variety, but it gives you a better chance of actually getting something that you really like, versus like doing a job because you have to kind of thing. And obviously like everyone, I mean I did that. I did background painting. I don't love it, but I did it. Kind of a thing. And of course it's a job, so you do it. Um, but yeah, it's just stuff like that. It's more so things that I don't see in portfolios, I guess, like how we talked about today. It's like people think about viz dev, but then they only think of one part of viz dev, when it actually includes more things because viz dev isn't as sectioned off as like TV is. Or if people do TV work, they don't show like background designing. They don't have those simpler scenes that kind of showcase that you understand how to fill it in, which is understandable because there's not a lot of information about that out there. But if you just go and look at TV shows or movies that you like and kind of just reference that, it's a great starting off point, and then you go and do your own thing. But I can't say I've really seen much of things of being like, oh no, they won't look at that, besides the fact of like, if you're applying for a background painting job, don't put in props or anything like that because it just confuses the recruiter about what it is you want to do. That'd probably be the only thing. Um, yeah, it's like most people usually do what they do. It's more they forget certain things or they don't include certain things. I will say I personally like seeing more polished work along with a sketchier one, and I have seen like more sketchy kind of work. So it's good to show that you can do both, if anything. Show me like a nice polished work and also show me your creativity and variety in another one. Yeah.
Right. Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Angie. This has
Yeah,
been
no
a really great
problem.
portfolio
Yeah.
review.
I'm glad I was able to help. Yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
joining. Okay.
no problem. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And last but not least, we have Eric. If you're able to join in. Hi, thank you so much for being patient through all of this. I know we're running over some time, but just want to make sure we get through everyone. So please introduce yourself.
Hello,
You might
how
need
are
to
you?
mute the YouTube
Sure.
video.
Yep. Yep. Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
My name is Eric. I work kind of as a freelance animation person, some storyboarding, and now some more background painting and background design.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking to land a position in a studio sort of situation, such as Netflix, as a
Okay.
background painter.
Okay. Great. Let's look at your portfolio. Okay. So right off the bat, your work is really great. Like you have a lot of great sense of color. Um, so the only thing I can think of is just like how we've done with other people is maybe just having some life painting is also really great to showcase more of that sense because a lot of your work with the painting also it feels very much like a specific genre, and it could be good to maybe branch out and try different styles. Um, like if I were to
Sure.
say it, it feels like kind of like UPA Looney Tunes kind of start like vibe. Um, or like a
Mhm.
yeah, and I would love to see something maybe a bit um more dramatic in some senses, or maybe even just like referencing what the studios you're into are doing like today, like what is some of the recent things they've been producing and kind of see how those backgrounds are styled, how the color is in those ones, and how they kind of align and match up with yours. Because I feel like what you have is really great.
Okay.
I would just say like some of these are pretty high in saturation, and I would love to see things that are a bit more like unified and stylized, um, that match with what some of the studios are producing today. That way
Mhm.
you have this sense of like the older style or like the style that's more nostalgic, and then you also have the style that's a bit more modern and more today. So you have the variety and you have a better chance of like going into either or. Let's see what else. Your
Okay.
illustrations are also really cool. They're really fun, and I love how you're um, like combining them all together. This is really cool pixels. But yeah, I think what you have right now is really strong. This is a really fun painting as well. But yeah, that would just be my
Sure.
main thing. It's just looking into something a bit more like out of your comfort zone, if anything, because you have either really saturated or then you have more low in saturation kind of duller type of tone. So I would love to see just like a very simple like evening or something a little bit more colorful, less saturated, kind of, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
That's just what I would view like based off of some of the work I've seen that are currently going on in like TV. It would be great to just see variety within it. So I think it would just be great if you could like research in terms of where you want to work and what they're currently doing. And even just seeing like going to see those and finding the artists who worked on there and seeing what their portfolios looked like can give you a sense of like what could have attracted an art director or recruiter to them for that project. That's a lot of what I did when I was starting out is just trying to see like what is it that they have that I can kind of learn from, if that makes any sense.
I see.
Yeah. Do
Okay.
you have any questions?
Um, one question I had come up with was if you have contacts, that you've shown work to, um, how often do you send updates to them? Every 4 or 5 new sort of unique images that you've done?
No, I mean, I don't always do that. Um, it would usually be like within a when I was first starting out and just sending updates, I'd sent them in within like maybe 6 months to a year from the last time I sent it out, just because or I just waited till the seasons kind of changed because people are usually hiring around like fall and spring. That's when projects are getting started or when they're finally starting to recruit people. So I kind of waited around what I felt were like the hotspot times to email. Um, it wasn't ever just like, here's like 4 new images or something like that. It would be either I revamped my portfolio or I would just be like, hey, great to get in contact with you again. Just wanted to check in and see if there's anything new available. Here's my portfolio again, stuff like that, and just kind of chat like that. Um, but you could show like, oh, I added some new work. I'd love if you checked it out. That could be good too. But yeah, it was like it was pretty long periods of time just because I didn't want to bother them too much. But that was generally how I went about it.
Right.
hmm is there any other questions that you
Okay.
have?
Let's see. Maybe one other would be, would you say you have to work in Photoshop for background painting? Because I did
Yes.
most of this stuff in Clip Studio.
Um, I think if you're doing freelance and if the work like the if you can save it as like a PDF or something like that, it could be okay. The issue is that a lot of industries use Photoshop, and so if you go to work at the studio, they're going to have Photoshop. So you're going to need to know how to work Photoshop in that sense. Another thing is that they need a saved as like kind of PSD file if that's all they're using. They need that save
Yep.
file so that they themselves can open it, make edits, or give it to their studio for whatever they need it for. So it's good to have the same program in order for just ease of working in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's pretty much all I have
okay, great.
as far as questions are concerned.
Yeah. Well, it was really great to get to
Uh,
talk with you and see your work. Thank you for applying.
Sure thing. And
Yeah.
sure. And thanks
Yeah.
for all your reviews here.
Yeah. Happy to help. Okay.
Okay.
Have
Bye
a
now.
great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cool. Okay. What a great time that was. So that is all of the people that I've had to review for today. I'm just going to quickly look over chat because I haven't been able to look at it for any questions. So I'm just going to try and see that first. So let's see. If you send an updated portfolio to recruiters, do you add information again, like what you would like to work as? Yeah, so when I do that, I send an email again. I'm like, "Hi, so and so. Um, hope you're doing well. I just wanted to check in again to see if you had any available like background design work Full-time or freelance would be great. I just wanted to check in and see. Here's my portfolio in case you need that. Um, can't wait to hear from you. That's usually how I go about it because most of the times recruiters see like hundreds of people constantly. They get bombarded with emails. So it's just great to, um, just send them an update of who you are. If you had a nice chat, just remind them of that so that they remember like, oh, you're not just another person, you're someone they have spoken with. So it's great to keep that up. Um, let's see. How do you connect with recruiters of big studios like Netflix, Disney, or any other studios outside of LinkedIn, like email or anything? How do you find it? So for me, it was a lot of um, just hitting the ground running with stuff. Like I had said earlier in the stream, I had applied for a DreamWorks internship. I didn't get it, but I had actually made it far enough that I was able to talk someone and they had an email. And so from that, I used that email forever. Um, and I just used like LinkedIn to get names. The other times, I believe I got them from like um, doing like CTN and stuff, meeting with recruiters there, and I think I asked for like the artist or whoever was recruiting, um, what their emails were, if they felt comfortable enough to share their like company email with me. That's kind of how I did it. I was just like, I would love to stay in contact with you. Do you have an email I can like send you updates with or anything like that? I understand if you don't want to give it out. I just thought I'd ask. Or the recruiters themselves who give like business cards at the end of those meetups. I would get it, and sometimes they would have the emails on those, and that's usually how I went about getting it. Um, and then nowadays, I am fortunate enough that I do get freelance responses, and so I have the emails on there, and I'll just like put in other people's emails or stuff like that. Um, yeah, and sometimes it's just been applying to jobs, getting rejected, or possibly getting it, but in the end not getting it, but I still had those emails. But yeah. So let's see if there was any ones. There's something about a book I saw someone was typing. I'm not sure. What can this sort of style be used for? Let me see. Is it more suitable for animation films? I'm not sure what the conversation was in there. I don't know much about animation industry, but I would love to learn more. How do you go about finishing work with animation via an agency or studio or approach companies? So I'm gonna try to see if I can answer this. I'm speaking about the market in the UK and the US. I have many students with this Disney style, which is more generic, and in kids' books, it's not in demand. More textury styles are more in demand. Um, yeah, so in animation, you can have an agent. I've seen people have agents, but then you pay the agent some a fee of what you make. Um, but it does, I think, help you to maybe get a job because it's an agent. They have more connections, but then you have to pay them. Um, for me, I mean, I just reach out. It's basically like what I've been saying here. Just a lot of emailing and getting rejected, applying, getting rejected, stuff like that. That's how I've gone about it. Um, finishing art and animation, it's getting it to the level of render and detail that your art director wants. Um, so I usually would reference movies that I liked and saw the level of detail they got, and that's kind of what I wanted, so that's how I did it. Um, but yeah, when it comes to like I think illustration books this person mentioned, um, that depends. I'm not a book illustrator. I have seen like Disney themselves, when they make their books, their artwork is a little bit more of that style. But when it comes to just other illustration books, having a unique and fun style will help like set apart your book from other books, is what I've just seen. Um, so that's all I can answer for that one. Um, does visual development relate in storytelling? Yeah, visual development does. I mean, the whole point of it is to create the story visually. So they get the storyboards and they try to take that black and white like little thumbnail and turn it into a movie moment. So they are like doing that and as well as trying to get the essence of the mood of that scene. Um, I think that's about all the questions. Oh, here. Um, question. You mentioned earlier that portfolios for BG painting don't need to include props. Can you expand a bit what specifically should be in a BG Paint portfolio. So what I meant is like I saw like some people like if you saw with I think it was Mimi's, like she had a background paint section and she also included her props, but they don't relate to one another. Um, at least not in TV. If you're doing a TV portfolio, TV is very much sectioned off in comparison to VizDev. So you have background in your design section, you have prop design and background design and character design. In your color section, you have background painting and color designing. So color designers are responsible for painting characters and props. And a prop designer only draws props. So it's like when we saw um, stuff here that Ron had done. It's primarily just props. He's not painting it or anything like that. Um, so that's why I'm saying like if it's TV, when you do a portfolio, like say you're doing a portfolio review and you're like, "Oh, I want to do background like painting." It's gonna be odd to suddenly see a prop design in it when they don't relate. Now, if this is like a VizDev thing, then you're applying for VizDev. You're not applying for background painting. Um, because they're not sectioned off. So then you would see everything in there, and everything should primarily be colored if it's not a sketch, because you're trying to showcase them that you can paint and you can design. But when it comes to something more individualized, background painting is more like painting of a background versus like primarily singular props. But there would probably be props per se in the background, like books and cups and stuff like that. Those would need to be painted. It's just more of like singular props that you don't necessarily need. Um, how many pages are recommended for a VizDev portfolio on average? I would say like 15 to 20. 20 is probably a lot. 15 probably is good. That would kind of be where I'm at to that, and start strong and finish strong kind of a thing. Um, Photoshop is the main one I'm familiar with. If you know Blender, that's great for like VizDev and 3D modeling and stuff like that to kind of help out. Um, but yeah, that's a good one. A lot of different companies, they use different softwares in terms of organizing, so I can't really give examples of those because every company is kind of different. Um, let me see. I think there's a question of, are you Salvadorian? Just asking because it's nice to see others like me. Yeah, I'm half Salvadorian and I'm half Chinese. So I'm half and half. Um, thanks for asking. It's great to see more of us out there. Um, but yeah, I think that's all the questions. But yeah, thank you all for joining in. Hopefully I answered all the questions that there are. If I didn't, I'm sure my lovely friend and mod Gisette answered as many as she could. So thank you to her for that. And yeah, thank you all for joining. Thank you for attending Lightbox. It's really great. I'd really appreciate if you haven't already, go to the Artist Alley, check out my booth. My booth is number 906. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on both of my social medias at phalange. It's like your fingers, just with like 2 extra E's. Um, and yeah, so it was really great to get to talk to everyone. If you follow the links in the description, they will also send you to any of my stores if you want to support in any way. I have new pins and stuff I made. I have art books that I've made. They're in there. But yeah, feel free to connect on any social media or anything like that. Stop by my booth, stop by other friends' booths that I have, and check out any of the other events that are live and streaming. But other than that, I think we're done here. I'm glad everything ran pretty smoothly. I want to say thanks to my friends for letting me use their setup because it's like my computer was so laggy I couldn't do anything, so they were kind enough to offer me this setup. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I hope I was able to help as many people as I could during this time. We went over a bit, but yeah. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend, great rest of your day, night. Don't know what time everyone's tuning in. But bye bye. Thank you. Have a great rest of your time. Feel free to support